Naruto, advancing through pure effort in Konoha. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301 Meeting and Arrival. In the forest, Uchiha Shisu and others were still hiding. Suddenly, there was a sound of undisguised footsteps. Then, Qingming appeared in the forest with dozens of ninjas. Qingming glanced around and said directly, "Come out." Hearing this, the ninjas, who were wrapped in bandages and had a slightly weak breath, came out from their hiding places. Seeing their miserable appearance, the people who came to support them finally believed that they were really ambushed. Uchiha Shisu flashed to Qingming's side, looked at Uchiha Yasho and others, and said, "Qingming, these are..." Hearing this, Qingming pointed at Uchiha Yasho and briefly introduced him to the other party, saying, "This is our uncle, Uchiha Yasho." He heard that the mist ninja had broken through the defense line and was worried that we were in danger, so he brought people to support us. "Oh, it's the uncle. Shisu meets the uncle." Uchiha Shisu heard Qingming's words and hurriedly saluted respectfully. Hearing this, Uchiha Yasho nodded, looked at Uchiha Shisu, and said, "You are Shisu? Not bad. Very good." After a brief acquaintance, Uchiha Yasho did not exchange too many pleasantries. After all, there are still outsiders here, and many people have just lost their companions and friends. At this time, being too enthusiastic towards their own people is likely to cause dissatisfaction in these people's hearts. Although Uchiha Yasho did not care much about these, he still had to pay attention to the impact. Then, he started talking with others and asked about the ins and outs of the matter. At the same time, he sent people to explore the place where the battle had taken place before to confirm the authenticity of the matter. This is not that he did not believe the words of Qingming and others, but a necessary procedure. The village also judged their merits based on this. Otherwise, if they just reported it casually, the village would record an A-level or S-level mission. How could it be so simple? As a force, the most important thing is rules. If there are no rules, it will be a mess. Qingming did not care much about this. On the contrary, the arrival of these people finally allowed him to relax. To be honest, he has no interest in managing people. With his time, he might as well practice the palm immortal technique a few more times. Before, if it wasn't for the emergency, the captain and the deputy captain were sacrificed, and Uchiha Shisu is difficult to convince the crowd. He really wouldn't take over this mess. Now, with the presence of Uchiha Yashiro and others, he can finally put these trivial matters aside. And he can also use the palm immortal technique and chakra refining technique with peace of mind to strengthen his body while continuing to develop his body's potential. Everyone stayed here for several hours, until the afternoon, then they set off and rushed to the frontline command center. The reason for staying for such a long time is that Uchiha Yashiro needs time to resurvey the battlefield, and the other is that the wounded under Qingming need time to rest. Before, in order to save chakra, Qingming took care of everyone, but only stabilized their injuries and did not completely heal their injuries. In this case, they were already exhausted after rushing for several hours. Now, since it is generally safe, there is no need to hold on. So, everyone took a break for a while. In the afternoon, everyone set out again. This time there were no accidents, and everyone went smoothly. Near dusk, they finally arrived at the frontline command center. This command center is located in the easternmost part of the Land of Fire, close to the coast. Across the strait, it is the territory of the Land of Waves. The commander-in-chief is a senior ninja of the Nara clan, named Naruto. He is of the same generation as the contemporary patriarch of the Nara clan, Naruto, and is also a guy with an IQ far beyond that of ordinary people. After arriving at the destination, the first thing Qingming and others did was to meet with the other party and report to the other party what happened. After hearing his narration, combined with some of the results of the investigation by Uchiha Yashiro, Naruto's face was very ugly. Obviously, the other party has roughly guessed that someone is playing tricks. Otherwise, how could those mist ninjas easily break through the northern defense line? Here I have to say that in the face of the invasion of the hidden mist village, Konoha set up a total of 3 lines of defense and a forward base. Among them, the northern defense line is close to the country of Soup in the north, the southern defense line is close to the country of Whirlpool in the south, and the part in the middle is the central defense line. These defense lines are all arranged along the coastline and divided into several layers to block the invasion of the hidden mist village. In the past, these defense lines have been breached before, but they have never been breached 3 times in a row. But just yesterday, a group of mist ninjas seized the defense loopholes of the northern defense line, broke through 3 blockades in a row, and rushed into the hinterland of the Land of Fire. Originally, Naruto suspected that there was something else going on. Now, combined with the precise ambush of the support troops, he didn't know that this was a conspiracy. And the target? Naruto glanced at Qingming in front of him, and the opponent's record mentioned in the mission report was basically a louse on the monk's head. It was obvious. And the inside ghost who was so keen on targeting the Uchiha clan, and had the ability to organize this action and did not leave any evidence, Naruto could not think of any other possibility except Danzo and his root organization. But Danzo? Naruto shook his head. After Qingming finished his narration, he spoke again. I have written down what you said. Next, do you have anything else to add? Hearing this, Qingming hesitated for a moment, but in the end he did not mention the existence of Aburame Ryoma and others. Based on Sarutobi Hiruzen's personality, Qingming estimated that even if he knew, he would not say anything to Danzo, and he also wanted to weaken the Uchiha clan. In this case, why did he do these unnecessary things? In this world where great power belongs to oneself, fists are always more effective than words. Instead of arguing with the other party here, it is better to find an opportunity to kill Danzo directly. By then, there will be no trouble. With this thought, Qingming shook his head and said, that's basically it. I have nothing to add, is that so? Naruto groaned, tapped the table with his fingers, and after a moment, he said, then you should go down and rest first. Yes, Captain, Qingming responded and left without looking back. Looking at his back as he left, Naruto's eyes were deep. He could sense that Qingming was hiding something. But if the other party didn't tell him, there was nothing he could do. He had to report the breach of the northern defense line as soon as possible. It wasn't that this matter was so important, but he had to let Sarutobi Hiruzen know who was responsible. Otherwise, if the other party did this from time to time, would he still be able to be the commander-in-chief? Now, I'm afraid only the third Hokage can restrain him. Naruto gave a bitter smile and began to prepare the report. Chapter 302 Attitude. Waste. All waste. The next day. Early in the morning. In the headquarters of the route, Danzo looked at the intelligence in his hand and was furious. This was the news just received from the East Coast Front Command, saying that although the support troops were attacked and suffered heavy losses, however, the target persons, Uchiha Shisu and Uchiha Qingming, both arrived at the headquarters safely. If it were just that, it would be fine. The key is Qingming's strength. According to the existing intelligence, most of the special Jonin and Jonin of the Mist Ninja who ambushed the support troops this time were killed by the other side. Among them, there were even 2 of the 7 ninja swordsmen. This kind of strength has made Danzo feel difficult, even afraid. Damn it, Danzo cursed again, and then looked at the root ninja who was kneeling on one knee below, and said, has the Ryoma team not been contacted yet, my lord? Not yet, the root ninja below just replied, and there was a knock on the door. Dong dong dong. Hearing this sound, Danzo said directly, come in. Immediately, someone pushed the door open and entered. The man came to Danzo, handed over a warrant, and said, sir, someone from the Anbu just came and brought the Hokage's warrant, asking you to go to the Hokage's office immediately. Danzo glanced at the warrant in the man's hand, sneered and said, humph, now you come to me, are you pretending to be a good person again? Half an hour later. In the Hokage's office. Sarutobi Hiruzen sat behind his desk, smoking a pipe, holding a report in his hand, frowning. Bang! The door of the office was pushed open directly, and a figure walked in. Without looking, Sarutobi Hiruzen knew who came. Except for Danzo, no one would break in without knocking on this door. Without waiting for Sarutobi Hiruzen to ask, Danzo spoke first. Hiruzen, what do you want to talk to me about? I'm busy. Hearing Danzo's words, Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned, took the pipe from his mouth, and asked in a deep voice, Danzo, don't you have anything to tell me? Something. However, hearing these slightly questioning words, Danzo completely ignored them, and just pretended to be stupid and said, what thing? Humph. Seeing Danzo's attitude, Sarutobi Hiruzen snorted coldly, threw the report in his hand on the desk, and shouted, then explain this to me. Hearing this, Danzo picked up the report, glanced at it roughly, and said indifferently, isn't it just that the defense line has been breached? What's there to explain? Danzo, Sarutobi Hirozen was furious, and asked directly. You dare to say that this has nothing to do with you? Hearing this, Danzo opened his mouth and was about to say yes, but after seeing Sarutobi Hirozen's angry eyes, he lowered his head. He reluctantly explained, Don't worry, Hirozen, I can be 100% sure that those mist ninjas can only break through that one gap, and there will be absolutely no trouble in the future. There was a silence in the office. Hey, after a long time, Sarutobi Hirozen sighed and said, Forget it this time, I don't want to see similar things happen again. Danzo, do you understand? Humph, Danzo snorted coldly, without saying anything to guarantee. Sarutobi Hirozen had no way to deal with this. The office fell into silence again, leaving only the sound of Sarutobi Hirozen smoking from time to time. Papa, he exhaled a long stream of smoke and spoke again. Okay, this matter is over. Let's talk about the second matter next. The second matter. Danzo's heart moved, but he still pretended to be confused and said, What matter? Humph. What matter? Seeing that Danzo was still playing dumb with him, Sarutobi Hirozen took out another report and threw it to Danzo, saying, Explain to me what's going on with these 5 people. Hearing this, Danzo hurriedly took the report and read it carefully. After a moment, he cursed inwardly. Really useless. There are photos and autopsy reports of these 5 people. Although their specific appearance cannot be distinguished because of their charred bodies, it is not only these that can be relied on to distinguish the identity of a ninja. Compared with the appearance that can be easily changed, the traces of secret medicine and curse marks left on their bodies can better explain a person's identity. And it just so happens that these traces on these 5 people are all consistent with the methods used by the Root organization to cultivate ninjas. There is no doubt that they are ninjas of the Root organization. This is also the reason why the Anbu ninjas are required to leave no corpse when they die on a mission, because the enemy can easily judge their origins through the marks on the corpse. Unfortunately, Aburain Ryoma and others died too suddenly, and there was no time to activate the backup plan, so the corpses were finally preserved. That's right, the 5 people in the report that Sarutobi Hirozen took out were Aburain Ryoma and his 4 subordinates. The evidence was already in front of him, so Danzo simply stopped pretending and threw the report away, saying, Nothing, just sending a few people to deal with the dangerous elements. Dangerous elements? Hearing Danzo's words, Sarutobi Hirozen slammed the table and shouted, Uchiha is a member of Konoha, not a dangerous element, no? Danzo chuckled twice, pointed to the first report, and said, Hirozen, look at the battle records of the 2 guys in it, especially that Uchiha Qingming. Dare you say they are not a threat to the village? Sarutobi Hirozen was speechless for a long time, before he said hesitantly, They are Konoha's Jonin and have been fighting for Konoha? Enough. However, before Sarutobi Hirozen could finish his words, Danzo interrupted him loudly, Hirozen, don't be naive. Now is a time of war. Of course they have to fight for Konoha, but what about after that? Who can guarantee that they won't rebel? Don't forget, how did that person leave the village? Mentioning that person, Sarutobi Hirozen couldn't help but shudder. Then, he recalled the horrific scene he saw in his childhood. That tall figure that looked like a god was not something that mortals could resist. Only the wood release of the first generation could contend with it. But now, the first generation is dead. If another Uchiha Madara comes, will the village still have the power to check and balance him? Behind the hazy smoke, Sarutobi Hirozen's expression changed. But in the end, he still said, Danzo, you think too much? Whether it is that person or the first generation, they are special. It is impossible for anyone to reach their level. Really? Danzo asked back, without commenting. Seeing this, Sarutobi Hirozen's tone also softened, saying, Now is a war period. Your previous proposal to concentrate the Uchiha ninjas in the mist and sand battlefields has caused dissatisfaction among many Uchiha ninjas. Don't act privately next time. Danzo heard this, chuckled twice, turned around and left the office without saying anything. When he reached the door, he suddenly said, Hirozen, you are the light of the village, and I am the darkness of the village. I will not let go of anyone who may threaten the existence of the village. After that, he left the office without looking back. Looking at his back as he left, Sarutobi Hirozen picked up the first report again. Looking at the record of Uchiha Qingming's battle record on it, he looked inexplicable. At this time, no one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 303 Promotion. Meanwhile, on the other side, at the East Coast Command, Qingming was given 3 days off, free to move around and get familiar with the environment. Not only him, But all the ninjas who came to support had 3 days off, and even those ninjas with more serious injuries had a longer rest time. In the morning, after Qingming finished washing and eating, he left the coast, found a place, and began to practice. Unlike the battlefield in the Rain Country, this place is close to the sea, so it is very easy to find a place to practice. Any deserted island or reef overseas will do. Moreover, when practicing in these places, you can also let go of your hands and feet appropriately, and you don't have to worry about making too much noise and attracting other people's attention. After all, the sea is vast and boundless, and it is almost impossible to be found without knowing the specific location. For this reason, Qingming directly separated 6 shadow clones. Among them, 2 continued to work hard on the proficiency of Wind Style, Wind Blade and Sharingan, striving to improve them to perfection as soon as possible. Another shadow clone practiced Wind Style, Shuriken. This time, because its level was too low and difficult to use in actual combat, he had to use the main Gekyo Sharingan more often. For the sake of his eyes, Qingming said he would upgrade its level as soon as possible. In addition, there were 2 shadow clones, who were specially assigned by Qingming to practice the 2 ninjutsu of Water Style, Water Array Wall and Water Style, Water Dragon Bullet. The former had just entered the door and the latter had just embarked on the road to entry, and they urgently needed to upgrade their levels. It can be foreseen that the next battle with a mist ninja will most likely take place within the sea area, so it is necessary to master the 2 water-style ninjutsu as soon as possible. In this way, it will not suffer a loss. As for the last shadow clone, Qingming planned to let it seize the time to practice swordsmanship. In the battle last night, his swordsmanship has reached the edge of promotion, and there is no need to drag it on. Qingming plans to rely on the proficiency panel to directly deliver it to the perfect state. After the assignment, Qingming let them leave. After that, he also found a place and began to practice Palm Fairy technique and Reflection Heart technique. Both of these have a direct effect on the body, and cannot be performed by the shadow clone. He can only practice it himself. In a flash, time came to the afternoon. Just when Qingming performed the Palm Immortal technique again, a sense of enlightenment suddenly emerged in his heart. After Qingming digested these insights, he suddenly felt that his understanding of the Palm Immortal technique had reached a new level. Is it upgraded? Qingming murmured, opened the panel and glanced at it. Sure enough, his Palm Immortal technique has been promoted to level 8, 1/50000. I don't know how effective the treatment is. Thinking of this, Qingming stretched out his right hand, gathered a little chakra at the fingertips, and then used his index finger like a knife to stab and cut a hole on his left arm. Scarlet blood flowed out of the wound, but Qingming didn't care. He completed the seal with both hands in an instant and performed the Palm Immortal technique. A ball of Yang escape chakra was condensed by him and then injected into the wound. Then, his wounds began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. Qingming carefully felt it for a moment and could clearly feel that his Palm Immortal technique had a stronger healing effect on injuries. Not only that, this method of rapid healing would no longer consume more chakra like before. This was undoubtedly good news for him. As for the strengthening effect on the body, Qingming thought about it, formed a seal again, and performed the Palm Immortal technique, condensing a stream of Yang escape chakra and letting it flow in the body. 3 minutes later, the strengthening effect disappeared and Qingming opened his eyes. Without any surprise, its strengthening effect on the body was also enhanced. If this continues, at most 3 or 4 days, his body will usher in a new transformation, and the physique attribute will be further improved. Qingming was delighted, and it took a while for him to calm down and continue to practice. However, today is destined to be a good day for him. Just a few hours after his Palm Immortal technique was promoted, near dusk, his swordsmanship was finally promoted. Center of the deserted island. After Qingming absorbed the experience and memory of the shadow clone, he felt that his understanding of swordsmanship had also risen to a higher level. Panel. With a thought, Qingming opened the proficiency panel. The next moment, a familiar light blue screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 12 years old. Constitution, 15 spirit, 19 chakra, 13,500, 5,778,060,596, bloodline, Sharingan, main Gekyo, 2,689, 50,000, 3,201/50000, skills, chakra refining technique, LV5, 1027, 5,000, LV5, 1115, 5000, Wind Style, Wind Blade, LV6, 765/10000, LV6, 875/10000, Wind Style, Sharingan, LV1, 35 out of 200, LV1, 100/200, Water Style, Water Array Wall, LV1, 84 out of 200, LV1, 119/200, Water Style, Water Dragon Bullet Technique, LV0, 1/100, LV0, 36/100, Shadow Clone Technique, LV4, 165/2000, LV4, 190/2000, Chakra Absorption Technique, LV5, 3550/5000, LV5, 3650/5000, Rasengan, LV6, 902/10000, LV6, 1015/10000, Palm Immortal Technique, LV8, 1/50000, LV8, 101/50000, Chakra Scalpel, LV5, 1200/5000, LV5, 1550/5000, Heart Reflection Technique, LV7, 12950/20000, LV7, 14486/20000, Phantom Sword Technique, LV4, 701, 2000, Instant Sword Technique, LV1, 162 out of 200, Chakra Control, LV5, 2160, 5000, LV5, 2320, 5000, Perfect Skill, Swordsmanship, LV7, 00. It can be seen that in the past week or so, because he was on the road most of the time, only his skills, Palm Immortal Technique, Heart Reflection Technique and Chakra Refining Technique, as well as the Chakra Limit and the progress of the main Uchiha Sharingan that changed due to them, were improving normally. The other skills, except for Chakra Scalpel and Swordsmanship, which were slightly improved because of treating the wounded and fighting respectively. The rest are only the results of today's practice, and the improvement is not very big. Fortunately, Qingming was mentally prepared for this. After this crisis is over, it will not be like this. Next, he has at least 2 days to practice peacefully. As for the future, it depends on whether the attack of the hidden mist village is fierce. After a deep sigh, Qingming closed the panel, looked at the sky, and then did not stay and went straight back to the headquarters. 3 days passed in a flash. Qingming's vacation was over and he received the latest order. According to the situation on the front line, he was sent directly to the forward base. As mentioned earlier, in order to deal with the invasion of the hidden mist village, Konoha set up 3 lines of defense and a forward base. Among them, the 3 lines of defense are the northern line of defense, the central line of defense, and the southern line of defense, all of which are arranged along the coast. The forward base is different. It is not on the territory of the Land of Fire, but in the territory of the Land of Waves, which is across the sea from the headquarters. Next, his task is to go there to garrison. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304, Forward Base. 2 days later. Wave Country. Dock area. A passenger ship slowly approached. After it docked, a Konoha ninja came out, and Qingming was among them. This time, they came to rotate and garrison. After stepping on land again, Qingming looked back at the passenger ship they had taken before and shook his head. Compared with the warships of the hidden mist village, the passenger ship they took not only had low defense, but also slow speed. It was only because the wave country was not far from the frontline command center, otherwise this kind of ship would have almost no chance of survival if it encountered an attack from the hidden mist village. However, there was no way to do this. What kind of environment determines what kind of development direction? The Land of Fire has a vast land area and rich resources. It has little desire to take from the sea itself or the various island countries in the ocean. Naturally, it cannot develop a strong shipbuilding industry. In contrast, the Land of Water is a barren country surrounded by the sea. In order to survive, it can only vigorously develop the shipbuilding industry. In this way, there are naturally powerful warships. And it is precisely because of these warships that the hidden mist village can continuously invade the border of the land of fire. Otherwise, how can they cross hundreds or thousands of kilometers of sea by walking on water alone? Not to mention the harsh environment at sea, there is no place to stay, and there is always a risk of life. The consumption of chakra alone is not something that ordinary ninjas can bear. Therefore, one of the major tasks of their forward base is to destroy their ships after finding the traces of the mist ninja. Of course, these are all later. At this stage, their task is to familiarize themselves with the environment here. After arriving at the forward base, he greeted several ninjas from the Uchiha clan. After completing the registration, Qingming returned to the residence arranged for him by the logistics department. Thanks to the existence of the land of waves, the resources of their base are still rich. At least there is no big problem in food, clothing, housing and transportation. As a senior ninja, Qingming's residence is directly a small courtyard. Although it is not big, it is small but complete. After roughly checking the courtyard and getting familiar with where he lives, Qingming immediately went to the training room. He took out a few pills of rations, stuffed them into his mouth, and used the chakra refining technique to replenish the chakra in his body to the overflowing state. Qingming muttered, "It's time to start." After that, he formed seals with his hands and performed the palm immortal technique. Suddenly, a ball of yang escape chakra was condensed by him. Qingming controlled this ball of chakra to travel in his body, strengthening the cells and tissues in various parts of the body. After a few minutes, the yang escape chakra was exhausted. Qingming didn't think about it, and formed seals again, and performed the palm immortal technique. Once, twice, 5 times, 10 times. After more than an hour, Qingming consumed 3,000 or 4,000 points of chakra and performed the palm immortal technique 20 or 30 times in succession. As his body was strengthened again and again, he could clearly feel that his body was only one step away from transformation. But this step, he couldn't take it no matter what. Alice. Breaking the limit of the body is really not an easy thing. After a long time, Qingming opened his eyes and sighed helplessly. However, think about it. Every time his body undergoes a transformation, it is an all-round evolution. If it can be easily successful, then everyone in the ninja world would be a genius. Evolution like this, the later it goes, the more difficult it is. Fortunately, I still have a trump card. With a murmur, Qingming instantly opened the main Gekyo Sharingan. Suddenly, his eyes changed from the 3 Magatama form to the Black Sun main Gekyo form, and an inexplicable pressure emerged. At this time, anyone who stayed by his side would feel an invisible mental pressure. This is also the reason why he did not start the evolution on the ship. That's right, as early as when he was on the ship, his accumulation was enough, but considering that he might need the assistance of the main Gekyo Sharingan, he did not start rashly. And now, silently, a tear of blood slid from Qingming's right eye, and the pupil technique that resided in it, human control, was performed by him and blessed on himself. Suddenly, a mysterious guidance appeared. Qingming did not hesitate, and formed a seal again, performing the palm immortal technique. Unlike dozens of times before, this time, as soon as the yang release chakra flowed through every corner of the body, the cells and tissues strengthened by it began to evolve according to Qingming's will. Originally, his body was only one step away from transformation, and this time the guidance of human control completely broke the shackles. This is the power of human control, controlling oneself and using one's own will to determine the direction of the body's evolution, which can be called the power of God. After about a few seconds, after confirming that the body's evolution has embarked on the right path, Qingming closed the main Gekyo Sharingan. Then, he began to carefully experience the changes in his body. Time passed by minute. About half an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes. Suddenly, a burst of vitality emanated from his body. This was not because he used any means, but simply the leakage of physical energy. If Orochimaru in the future saw him at this moment, he would definitely find ways to turn him into a container for reincarnation. Fortunately, this situation did not last too long. After just a few minutes, the energy leakage was restrained. At this point, his transformation was complete. Qingming opened the panel and took a look. Without any surprise, his physique attribute increased a little bit again, from the previous 15 points to the current 16 points. As a result, his physical potential also rose to a higher level. Qingming felt it carefully. At this time, His chakra theoretical upper limit increased by about 20,000 points, and the increase was the same as last time. Logically speaking, it is more difficult to increase the physique attribute from 15 points to 16 points than from 14 points to 15 points, and the increase should be greater. But the fact is the same. There is only one reason for this, that is, 15 points of physique is a watershed, and the increase is a little more than the normal state. It is precisely because of this that the increase of 20,000 points this time seems a little less. However, even so, after he realizes all these potentials, the chakra upper limit will increase from 140,000 points to 170,000 points. In addition, there is the chakra recovery speed. This can be divided into two parts. The first is the speed of the body's natural chakra recovery, which has increased from 80,000 points per day to 96,000 points, a full increase of 16,000 points. The second is the improvement in the pressure-bearing capacity brought by the physical enhancement. This allows him to operate the chakra refining technique for 1 more hour every day, and the maintenance time has increased from 11 hours to 12 hours. And every hour of chakra refining technique can restore 2,000 points of chakra. In this way, the total is 120,000, equals 2,000 plus 96,000 points per day. This number is almost 18,000 points more than the previous 102,000 points. Qingming thought about it and decided to take out 14,000 points of chakra and divide it equally between water style, water array wall and water style, water dragon bullets technique. In this way, the chakra allocated to them every day will increase from 3,000 points to 10,000 points. In this way, the proficiency of these two skills that he can obtain every day will also increase from 35 points to more than 115 points. As for the remaining 4,000 chakra points, Qingming directly gave them to the wind-style Sharingan, which increased the chakra allocated to it every day from 10,000 points to 14,000 points. In this way, the proficiency that he can obtain every day will also increase from 65 points to more than 90 points. It can be predicted that it will not be long before these skills of his will usher in rapid progress. Chapter 305 News. Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, a week had passed. During this week, Qingming gradually became familiar with the entire forward base, and then began to lead the team to perform tasks in the nearby sea area. Originally, he thought he would meet the Mist Ninja again soon. After all, the situation here is not very good, otherwise there would be no need to transfer people from the battlefield of the Rain Country to support. But what Qingming did not expect was that it had been several days, and he had not seen even a shadow of the Mist Ninja, as if all the Mist Ninjas had retreated. However, if you think about it carefully, this is really possible. This time, because of Danzo's tip-off, their support team was ambushed, and although the losses were heavy, the losses of the Mist Ninjas were also not small. The hidden Mist Village would feel sad for a while after burying so many elite ninjas. Especially the deaths of the 2 7-ninja swordsmen, Kurachurega and Biwajuzo, left them with a vacancy in their high-end combat power. In this case, it is understandable to retreat temporarily. And Qingming is also happy to see such a situation. Collect, Land of Waves. Southeastern Sea. On a small boat, Qingming glanced at the sunset in the sky and spoke directly. Hearing this, several Konoha ninjas responded one after another, and then began to control the boat, heading towards the forward base. Near the coast, Qingming jumped off the boat, chakra suddenly gathered at the bottom of his feet, and finally stood steadily on the sea. Qingming looked back at a young Uchiha ninja in the team, about 14 or 15 years old, with a black mole on his forehead, and said, "Chihiro, the task of handing in the task is left to you, leave it to me again." Uchiha Chihiro's tone was a little helpless. Hearing this, Qingming laughed and said, "Thank you for your trouble." After that, he turned and rushed towards a vague reef in the distance. Seeing this, Uchiha Chihiro hurriedly shouted from behind, "Then don't forget the challenge in 3 days." Qingming kept walking, turned his back to him, raised his right hand and waved, indicating that he heard it. The captain is going to practice again, he is really hard-working. On the boat, a Konoha ninja looked at Qingming's back and murmured. Yet, another Konoha ninja heard his words and echoed, "The patrol mission is hard enough. The captain has to practice after completing the mission every day. I don't know how he can hold on." More than that, at this time, the third Konoha ninja interrupted and said, "Didn't you notice that the captain was also practicing some kind of ninjutsu while performing the mission?" "Nonsense. Of course we saw it," the Konoha ninja who spoke earlier retorted without any hesitation. Then, he sighed and said, "Hey. That's why I say the captain is a pervert. I can't stick to such high-intensity training anyway." "Haha, of course you can't." Uchiha Qingming heard their conversation and said with a slightly proud tone, "He is one of the two geniuses of our Uchiha clan. How can ordinary people compare with him?" Speaking of this, Uchiha Qingming was initially dissatisfied with Qingming, the captain who is airborne, but after being beaten up by Qingming, he immediately became obedient. Later, after several fights, he gradually evolved into his crazy fan. Qingming didn't care much about this, but took this opportunity to hand over all the trivial matters in the team to the other party. Of course, he had to pay some price for this, which was the challenge the other party just mentioned. However, it was called a challenge, but in fact it was just asking him to guide the other party's practice. The frequency was not too high, about once every 3 or 4 days, which didn't take much effort, so Qingming agreed, on the reef in the outer sea. After Qingming arrived here, he sensed the surroundings and found nothing unusual. So, he crossed his hands, formed the character seal, and performed the shadow clone technique. Bang bang bang, accompanied by a burst of chakra smoke, 6 shadow clones appeared in the field. Without Qingming's instructions, they each ran in a direction, and then began to practice several skills according to the plan. However, his swordsmanship has been perfected and there is no need to practice it anymore. Therefore, Qingming asked the shadow clone who was originally practicing swordsmanship to start practicing illusion swordsmanship. Unlike instant swordsmanship, practicing illusion swordsmanship does not require special preparation of weapons that can conduct chakra. Its main test is the coordination of Sharingan, illusion and swordsmanship, and the practice is also this. However, precisely because of this, practicing illusion swordsmanship requires more chakra than simply practicing swordsmanship. For this reason, Qingming had to divide a part of the chakra retained in daily life for the practice of this skill. Fortunately, the chakra consumed is not too much. With his current chakra of more than 60,000 points, it is enough to support for a long time. In other words, as long as he rests for half a day every once in a while and replenishes himself with the chakra recovered during this period, he can solve this problem very well. Usually, the chakra consumed by him outside of practicing skills is replenished in this way. Although this will slow down his progress to a certain extent, it is generally acceptable. In addition, this can also give him some time to rest. The combination of work and rest is the kingly way. Qingming will naturally not be tense all the time. In a flash, time came to night. The task of the shadow clone has been completed. After Qingming digested all the training experience and memory, he returned to the forward base. Walking into the small courtyard under the moonlight, Qingming suddenly paused, and the Sharingan opened instantly, looking at the corner of the courtyard. Meow! Suddenly, a cat's cry came. Qingming's heart moved, and he walked over, and immediately saw a big cat with pure black fur licking its paws there. Seeing Qingming coming, the big cat did not leave in fright, but raised its head and looked at Qingming. Its eyes did not have the ignorance of ordinary cats, but only had the wisdom of a human. Its eyes stayed on Qingming's Sharingan for a moment, and then it said, "Uchiha Qingming." Yes, the other party spoke. Obviously, this is not an ordinary cat, but a ninja cat. Hearing the other party's question, Qingming nodded and said, "It's me." After getting a positive answer, the black cat breathed a sigh of relief and said with a slightly complaining tone, "Where have you been? Why did you come back now? It made me wait for a long time. What's the matter?" Qingming ignored the other party's complaints and went straight to the point. Hearing this, the black cat spit out a piece of paper and said, "The person you are looking for has been found. Grandma asked me to give this to you, Grandma Cat," Qingming murmured, and instantly thought of the matter of asking Elder Huaxun before leaving. Now it seems that the leader of the Kingdom of Craftsmen has been found, and the Kusanagi sword that he has been thinking about should also be in his hands. With this thought in mind, Qingming picked up the note and saw an address on it. Chapter 306, Race Against Time. Cat Granny, Qingming murmured, and instantly thought of the matter he had asked Elder Huaxun for help before setting off. Now it seems that the leader of the artisan country has been found, and the Kusanagi sword that he has been thinking about should also be in his hands. With this thought in mind, Qingming picked up the note, and sure enough, he saw an address on it. There is no doubt that this is where the leader of the artisan ninja village is hiding. Qingming put away the note, looked at the black cat, and said, "I have received the information, you can go back and report now." Meow! The black cat heard it, and said nothing more, just called out, and then jumped onto the wall of the courtyard, with a very gentle movement. It took a last look at Qingming, then jumped off the wall and disappeared into the night. Qingming looked at its disappearing back, retracted his sight, walked straight back to the room, and after a little washing, began to think about what to do next. First of all, the Uchiha clan ninja must not be allowed to take action. Not to mention that he had already agreed with Elder Huaxun that he would personally do it this time, and it would be a bit awkward to ask him to do it now. He was unwilling to take the risk of alerting the enemy. To be honest, Qingming didn't believe in the abilities of others except himself. Secondly, he couldn't let the shadow clone go there. As mentioned in the previous intelligence, the leader of the Takumi village was indeed in the territory of the Takumi country. The Takumi country is an inland country. Although it is not far from the wave country, it is not close. In this case, letting the shadow clone go there is too risky. Finally, and most importantly, there is no delay. Given the current situation of the leader of the Takumi village, the other party will definitely not stay in one place for too long. If it takes too long, the other party may change places. By then, it will take time to search again, and Qingming really doesn't want to waste time. Considering various factors, the best option is for him to take action with his real body, directly defeat the other party with absolute strength, and then take the Kusanagi sword from him. It just so happens that the Mist Ninja have been hiding in the past few days, and no battle has taken place, which is a great opportunity. If he delays, it will be difficult for him to find such an opportunity again when the war breaks out again. With this thought, Qingming no longer hesitated, and immediately crossed his hands, forming the character seal, and performed the shadow clone technique. Bang! A cloud of chakra smoke exploded. A figure exactly like Qingming appeared. Next, I'll leave this to you. Qingming looked at the shadow clone in front of him and spoke solemnly. Don't worry, I'm here, you go and come back quickly, the shadow clone replied. Hearing this, Qingming nodded, then quickly packed up his equipment, carefully left the yard, avoided various light and dark sentries, and finally left the base completely. Next, he definitely can't take a boat. Not to mention the issue of being exposed or not, he can't accept the speed of the boat alone. Although there is no war here, who knows how long this peaceful day will last. In order to be on the safe side, he must hurry on his way. Compared with this slow boat, it is undoubtedly the fastest for him to ride on the waves. Arriving at a remote cliff, Qingming sensed the surroundings and confirmed that there was no one there. Then he jumped down and jumped into the sea. Plop! Qingming's figure disappeared on the sea. After a moment, he emerged from farther away. Then, he gathered his chakra at the bottom of his feet, and then burst out with all his speed, stepping on the waves, like a sharp arrow, rushing straight forward. Wherever he passed, a long white mark was left on the sea, which lasted for a long time. Feeling the consumption of chakra in his body, Qingming nodded. With his current chakra recovery speed, it was enough to support such a crazy run for a long time. In this way, Qingming was relieved. Next, just be careful not to go in the wrong direction. Fortunately, the wave country and the fire country are not far apart, and the strait in the middle can be crossed in a short time at his current speed. In this way, with the moon as a guide, there is no need to worry about going wrong. Moreover, even if you go wrong, it doesn't matter, as long as it is not too far off, Qingming can accept it. Anyway, it's all about going ashore, so it doesn't matter where you go. In a flash, several hours passed. It was dawn. On the sea, Qingming looked into the distance and finally saw the coastline. Qingming let out a long breath, then restrained his breath and carefully touched the way. However, his luck seemed to be very good, and he did not see any patrol personnel from Konoha. Next, it would be easier to pass through the defense line. Yes, it was easy. Konoha's defense line was indeed very tight, but that was only for large-scale raids. It could not prevent infiltration at the level of a single person or a small team. After all, for ninjas, there is no absolute terrain restriction. As long as the strength is sufficient, any cliff is a smooth road. And it is obvious that Qingming belongs to this category. Therefore, it didn't take long for Qingming to pass through the 3 blockades of Konoha. At this time, the sky was already bright. Qingming took a short rest, and then set off again, rushing to the land of craftsmen with all his strength. In order to save as much time as possible, he did not choose to take a detour, but walked in a straight line the whole way. On the way, no matter he encountered mountains or rivers, he relied on his own strength to force his way through. He traveled so fast without considering the consumption of chakra that he arrived in the territory of the Kingdom of Craftsmen almost in the afternoon of the next day. Of course, the Kingdom of Craftsmen is located in the northeast of the Kingdom of Fire and is not far from the Kingdom of Waves, otherwise he would not have been able to arrive in such a short time. However, the long journey also made Qingming feel deeply tired. Although he did not think much of the strength of the leader of the Kingdom of Craftsmen, he was still prepared to rest just in case. Stopping in an abandoned village, Qingming swallowed a few soldiers' food pills and began to close his eyes to rest. At the same time, he was thinking about the lessons of this incident in his mind. There is no doubt that he is now lacking a ninjutsu for traveling. This also made him think of an idea he had a long time ago. Perhaps, he should find a way to learn the Flying Thunder God technique. No, not just the Flying Thunder God technique. The Flying Thunder God technique can only teleport to a fixed point. And he also needs a ninjutsu that can travel quickly. With this thought, Qingming looked up at the sky. In this world without air traffic control, flying in the sky is undoubtedly the fastest. Flying ninjutsu, Qingming murmured, and began to search through his past life memories, searching for similar ninjutsu in the ninja world. In just a moment, he thought of the ninjutsu of the third generation Tsuchikage, Anoki, Earth Escape, Super Light and Heavy Rock technique. This technique can greatly reduce the body density, allowing the ninja to have the ability to fly. It's called flying, but it's actually more like floating. Despite this, it is much stronger than other ninjutsu that can achieve the effect of flying, and it is also easier to achieve. But Qingming always feels that this is not suitable for him. Suddenly, he stretched out his right hand, and a ball of wind escape chakra was condensed by him, and then rotated around his palm. Maybe I can create a flying ninjutsu myself. Chapter 307 Success. In the deserted village. Qingming's thoughts raced, and after a long time, he collected his mind. Then, he clenched his palm and crushed the ball of wind escape chakra into pieces. It is true that he planned to create a wind escape flying ninjutsu, but not now. There are two reasons. One is that the time is not right. For now, it is most important to get the Kusanagi sword in the hands of the leader of the artisan ninja village. Other things can be postponed. Second, his foundation is not enough now. Don't look at him as if he has created an A-level ninjutsu and an S-level ninjutsu. But whether it is Rasengan or Wind Escape, Rasenshuriken, they all have sufficient theoretical foundations. Strictly speaking, it cannot be regarded as his own creation. And to create a ninjutsu by yourself is not a simple thing. Even a genius like Minato Namikaze spent 3 years to create a Rasengan. Even this is the result of Jiraiya's assistance. If he had done it alone, it might have taken even longer. This shows how difficult it is to conceive and create a ninjutsu from scratch. Qingming is probably better than them because he has the help of the proficiency panel. By then, he can completely create a prototype of a ninjutsu. As long as it can be recognized by the panel, he can use the power of proficiency to continuously improve it and eventually come up with it. It can be said that this saves a lot of trouble. Despite this, it is not a one-day job to create a ninjutsu from scratch. Therefore, there is no need to think about it now. Suppressing this thought temporarily, Qingming gathered his mind and began to close his eyes and rest quietly. Time passed by minute. In a blink of an eye, the sun was setting. Seeing that evening was approaching, Qingming no longer lingered. After identifying the direction, he rushed to the hiding place of the leader of the artisan ninja village. A few hours later, as night fell, Qingming arrived outside a small town in a dusty state. From a distance, it can be seen that this town is quite peaceful, with smoke rising from almost every house, and it seems that it has not been affected by the war. Qingming did not rush in. Since this place could be discovered by the group of ninja cats, it might also enter the field of vision of other ninja villages. He did not want to cause trouble, so it was better not to be discovered. With this thought, Qingming made seals with both hands, performed the transformation technique, turned into an ordinary person, and walked into the town. He did not waste time wandering around. He had a clear goal and walked straight to a small courtyard in the town. When he came near the courtyard, Qingming's footsteps suddenly stopped. There was no other reason. In his perception, several ninjas seemed to be monitoring this place. Qingming's thoughts were flying, and finally he approached the courtyard with this ordinary appearance. Bang bang bang, he stretched out his right hand and knocked on the door. However, no one answered. Qingming stopped for a moment, let go of his perception, and did not sense the breath of living people inside. "Is he not here?" Qingming murmured, without any hesitation, and immediately jumped onto the courtyard wall. In an instant, Qingming felt that the gazes on him became more intense. Obviously, his unusual behavior alarmed the people who were secretly monitoring here. However, in his perception, these people did not come over. After confirming this, Qingming secretly breathed a sigh of relief and thought to himself, "I bet right, very good." Before, he guessed that since these people chose to monitor, they would not act rashly. Now it seems that it is true. The other party probably thought that even if he had other purposes, it would not be easy to take down the leader of the artisan ninja village. After all, he is the leader of a village. Even if it is just a small ninja village, the strength should not be underestimated. In this way, they can completely wait and see. Unfortunately, they would never think that Qingming chose to act this way because he had the confidence to take down the other party in an instant. And this is also the point of Qingming's bet. Now it seems that he bet right, and those people did not make a move. In this case, he can act according to the plan. With this thought, Qingming jumped off the courtyard wall, searched a little, and entered the master bedroom. This is a very ordinary house. Qingming looked around and nodded after confirming that the bed and mattress had signs of recent use. This means that the chief of the artisan village is still living here, but he has just gone out temporarily. Carefully avoiding several traps, Qingming restrained his breath and hid himself in the corner of the house, quietly waiting for the chief of the artisan village to appear. The night gradually deepened. Creak, I don't know how long it has been. Suddenly, the sound of the courtyard door being pushed open came. Immediately, Qingming raised his full attention and listened quietly to the movement outside. First, there was the sound of a person walking, then the sound of him washing, and finally he didn't know what he was doing. He stood in the yard for a long time before returning to the bedroom. Who is it? As soon as he walked into the bedroom, the chief of the artisan village found something wrong. While shouting, he threw several shurikens. A black shadow rushed out from the corner of the house and easily avoided the attack of the shuriken. The chief of the Takumi village looked at it and exclaimed, "Sharingan! Uchiha ninja!" Without thinking too much, he pulled out a long sword from his waist and injected a stream of chakra into it, making it emit a sharp aura. Then, he swung the sword and attacked the man's neck. The man reacted quickly and dodged the attack immediately. However, relying on the sharpness of the long sword in his hand, the chief of the Takumi village did not retreat and immediately launched a series of attacks. For a while, the man could only passively dodge. However, if you defend too long, you will lose. After dodging more than a dozen swords in succession, the man was unable to react and was beheaded by the chief of the Takumi village in an instant. Seeing this, the chief of the Takumi village was about to breathe a sigh of relief, but suddenly he felt a flash in front of his eyes. He was still standing there, with nothing in his hands and the long sword still inserted in the scabbard at his waist. It seemed that everything just now was just an illusion. The only difference from before was that there was an Uchiha ninja standing in front of him. The leader of the Takumi village knew that he was under an illusion the moment he saw the other's Sharingan. And everything that happened just now was indeed his illusion. The leader of the Takumi village opened his mouth and was about to say something. But suddenly he felt a pain in his heart. He looked down and saw a kunai stuck in his chest. Puff, a mouthful of blood spurted out of the mouth of the Takumi village leader. Qingming slightly turned his body to avoid the blood. Takumi village covered his chest, staggered back 2 steps, and finally fell at the door. Soon, the other party lost his life. Qingming stepped forward and untied the scabbard from his waist. Squeak! Qingming pulled out a long sword, and a sharp breath came. A little bit of chakra was injected, and there was a silky feeling. Qingming stroked the long sword inside in his heart. It is worthy of being a rare weapon in the entire ninja world. The efficiency of chakra transmission is really extraordinary. Chapter 308 Tale. In the ninja world, there is no distinction between a knife and a sword. Therefore, the Kusanagi sword in Qingming's hand is called a sword, but in fact it is a long sword. Its appearance is similar to that of a tang straight sword, with a blade of about 3 feet long and 2 fingers wide, and a single-sided blade. The tip of the blade has a very small arc, which can be used for slashing or stabbing. Qingming waved it a few times and felt a little uncomfortable. Yes, he used to use a short sword, and now he suddenly changed to a long sword, so he would naturally feel a little uncomfortable. However, this is not a big problem. With his current LV700 perfect level of swordsmanship, He only needs one battle to be able to use this sword proficiently. And this battle. Qingming looked out through the crack in the door and along the courtyard wall. He vaguely saw several figures on a tower-like building in the distance. After observing for a while, Qingming retracted his sight. Clang, the long sword was sheathed again. Qingming hung it on his waist. Then, his eyes looked at the corpse of the leader of the artisan ninja village on the ground. Originally, he was still hesitating whether to kill the other party, but when he attacked him, Qingming no longer hesitated. Anyway, after coming to this world, his hands were already stained with blood, and it didn't matter if there was one more person. What's more, who can become a ninja without a few lives in his hands? Therefore, Qingming didn't have much psychological burden to kill the other party. Of course, by the same token, if one day he was killed like this, he could only blame his lack of strength, not others. This is originally a world where the strong prey on the weak. Whether it is between ninjas and ordinary people, or between countries, it is all the same. If you want to survive, you can only become stronger. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Qingming gathered his mood, quickly completed the seals with both hands, and performed the fire-style, great fireball technique. Bang! A fireball appeared and hit the body of the leader of the artisan ninja village. Soon, the opponent's body burned and eventually turned into a charred corpse. Qingming came to the yard, found the place at random, stretched out his left hand, and the Rasengan instantly condensed in his palm. A light blue chakra ball as big as a basketball appeared, and Qingming pressed it directly to the ground. Boom! A dull sound appeared. A big pit suddenly appeared on the ground. Qingming moved the body of the leader of the artisan ninja village and buried it in the soil. In this way, it will not be discovered in a short time. After doing this, Qingming walked out of the yard, pretended to glance around, and left the town directly. In a flash, more than half an hour passed. Outside the town, in a forest, Qingming was running fast, and suddenly stopped. Then, he looked back at the dark jungle. Squeak! Several insects chirped. Everything seemed so normal. But Qingming just watched quietly, motionless. 1 second, 2 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, soon 5 minutes passed. Whoosh whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, rustling the leaves on the surrounding trees. When the wind stopped, Qingming suddenly asked, "Aren't you coming out yet?" However, no one answered, and the jungle was still quiet. But, unlike before, the sound of insects had disappeared at some point. "You're not coming out," Qingming murmured, and then his expression changed, and he shouted, "Then go to hell." As he spoke, he raised his hands, completed the seal in an instant, and performed the ninjutsu, fire-style, great fireball technique. Then, a huge fireball came out of his mouth, and then he controlled it and smashed it into a big tree behind. In a flash, a black shadow rushed out of the tree. Boom! The fireball hit the big tree and instantly ignited it. The dazzling flames suddenly appeared, and instantly dispelled the surrounding darkness. Seeing this, the black shadow quickly threw several kunai and attacked Qingming's vital points. Not only him, but also kunai were flying from other directions. Sharingan! Qingming thought and instantly opened his Sharingan. Immediately, the flight paths of these kunai appeared in his eyes. Not only that, but he also locked the positions of those who threw the kunai. Qingming's brain was working rapidly, and his nerve reaction speed was increased to the limit. In a flash, he avoided all the attacks of kunai. At the same time, he formed seals with his hands again and performed another fire escape ninjutsu, fire escape, phoenix fire technique. In a breath, dense balls of fire were spit out by him, like seeds of impatience, floating and smashing at a group of enemies. "Be careful, damn it, get out of the way!" In an instant, the whole jungle became lively, and exclamations appeared one after another. The ninjas hiding in the dark began to dodge in a hurry. After a few breaths, the balls of fire disappeared, and these enemies in the dark showed their figures. Qingming was surrounded in it, but he was not panicked at all. Not only that, his eyes also swept over these people one by one with interest. It can be seen that they are not ninjas from a certain village, even if they were once, they are not now. As for the reason, it is very simple. There is a very obvious scratch on the forehead guards worn by these people, which is the sign of the renegade ninjas in the ninja world. And the only force that can accommodate so many renegade ninjas, except for the later Akatsuki organization, is the black market. In the ninja world, the black market is a special existence. It not only has bases in various countries, but also has its own task system. However, unlike the relatively positive tasks of the major ninja villages, The tasks of the black market can be said to be varied and mostly dark. But it can exist, which means that there is a reason for its existence. For example, the rewards for things that the major ninja villages cannot do openly will be posted here. It is precisely because of the tacit consent of these major ninja villages that the black market can exist. Otherwise, just like in the memory of the previous life before the start of the Fourth Ninja World War, the major ninja villages took the initiative to clean up the black market in their territory in order to avoid unexpected factors, and it was not easy to do it. It can only be said that in the ninja world, the 5 major ninja villages are chess players. As for other forces, they are just chickens and dogs. The black market is no exception. I have digressed. Anyway, it is precisely because of the special nature of the black market missions that the most traitors and wanted criminals in the ninja world gather here. Especially during wartime, they are more active. I just don't know why they would monitor the leader of the artisan village. According to their temperament, wouldn't they capture him for money? Qingming was puzzled and simply asked directly. He already had a general idea of the strength of these people. Except for one special Junin, the rest were just average Chunin levels, and he didn't need to waste too many brain cells. Therefore, Qingming had no intention of testing them at all. If he had any doubts, he would just ask directly. Chapter 309 Solution. Everyone, you should all be bounty ninjas, right? Since you have discovered the leader of the artisan ninja village, why don't you take action directly, but instead monitor him? Hearing Qingming's question, several bounty ninjas around looked at each other, and finally one of them sneered, "It's not your turn to tell us what to do, but your eyes are worth a lot of money in the black market. Brothers, do it." Suddenly, the bounty ninja shouted. Hearing this, several people around immediately rushed towards Qingming. Seeing this, Qingming sighed softly, "Hey. There is a road to heaven, but you don't take it. There is no door to hell, but you insist on breaking in. Well, I just got a good knife, so I'll use it on you." After saying that, he pulled out a long knife at his waist, and his momentum changed accordingly. Suddenly, a murderous aura enveloped the whole scene. Feeling this murderous aura, the bounty ninjas who had just shouted at him to kill immediately stopped. Having been in the dark zone for many years, they knew very well who they could and could not mess with. And guys like Qingming, who were full of bloody smell, must be avoided. Inexplicably, they had a thought of retreating. At this moment, Qingming's transformation technique could not be maintained and he changed back to his original appearance. A little ghost, child. Several bounty ninjas saw Qingming's true form and shouted. At the same time, the fear in their hearts also dissipated a lot. Seeing this, the leading bounty ninja immediately took the opportunity to order, "Kill." Then, everyone raised their weapons towards Qingming. However, facing the siege of these people, Qingming behaved very calmly, just waving the longsword in his hand, constantly blocking, and did not try to fight back. Ding ding dang dang, the crisp sound of metal collisions rang out in the forest. Under the light of the fire, Qingming, among the crowd, was like a swimming fish, nimbly moving among the crowd. He kept swinging the longsword in his hand, accurately blocking any attack coming at him, and his whole movement gave people a sense of ease and casualness. On the contrary, the few people who besieged him had almost exhausted all their strength, but they just couldn't take him down. Gradually, a sense of irritation arose in the hearts of several people, and the movements of their hands became bigger. However, the more this happened, the more flaws they had under the gaze of Qingming's Sharingan. If Qingming hadn't taken the opportunity to familiarize himself with a longsword in his hand, he would have solved them long ago. Time passed by minute. I don't know how long it had passed. Suddenly, a bounty ninja who was staring at Qingming, suddenly screamed, You are the Ghost Sword Qingming." "What? Ghost Sword Qingming? How is it possible?" Immediately, all kinds of voices came out, and several bounty ninjas all gave up the attack, and instead pulled away, staring at Qingming. Seeing this, Qingming put down the longsword in his hand, looked at the man who recognized him with interest, and said, "Oh. Do you know me?" Before the man could answer, the others saw that he did not deny it, and they all took a breath of cold air and unconsciously stepped back half a step. Hearing his question, the man who first recognized him said with a bitter face, "Who doesn't know the Ghost Sword Qingming with a bounty of 17 million taels?" The other party said, "Who doesn't know him?" In fact, most bounty ninjas really don't know him. Because more than 80% of bounty ninjas are mixed in the bottom of the black market. And for these bottom bounty ninjas, the high bounty of 17 million taels is not something they can covet. So, They usually just glance over and don't pay too much attention. Therefore, most bounty ninjas may not recognize him at a glance even if they see him. Just like the bounty ninja in front of him, didn't the other party recognize him at the beginning? In the end, because of the long fight, he recognized his identity. 17 million tails, it seems like they look down on me, Qingming muttered in his heart. You know, later Sarutobi Asuma had a bounty of 35 million tails, and his strength was obviously beyond the other party. Even if the other party had the bonus of Son of Hokage, he should not be so much higher than him. Maybe my reputation is not enough. This thought flashed through his mind, and Qingming no longer held back, immediately raised his long sword, and killed the person in front of him. He had already seen that these people had planned to escape since they recognized his identity. If he continued to hold back, the other party might scatter. In order to ensure that his identity information was not leaked, he had to deal with these people as soon as possible. Slash! The sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood sounded. Qingming's movements were too fast, and before the current person could react, his throat was cut off by his long sword. Ha ha ha! The bounty ninja covered his throat and made a series of strange sounds, and finally staggered 2 steps and fell to the ground. Seeing this scene, the others woke up from their dreams. Immediately, the leading bounty ninja shouted, "Everyone, run separately!" However, before he finished speaking, Qingming's eyes swept over. The moment their eyes met, Qingming activated the hypnotic ability of the Sharingan. In an instant, the opponent froze in place. However, Qingming was not in a hurry to kill him. He just dodged and knocked him out. As for the other few people, they were killed one by one before they ran far. With the strength of these people, Qingming didn't need to use any powerful ninjutsu to deal with them. He just used the flash body technique combined with the sword technique and the Sharingan to easily solve them. Returning to the leading bounty ninja, Qingming woke him up with a few slaps. Without waiting for him to beg for mercy, he asked again, "Tell me, why do you only monitor the leader of the artisan ninja village but not arrest him?" The bounty ninja who led the group hesitated for a long time, his eyes darting around, but he didn't say anything. Seeing his attitude, Qingming didn't waste any words. He immediately raised his hands, concentrated his mental power, and used his full strength to perform the Jinjutsu, Sharingan, to read the other party's memory. Seeing this, the bounty ninja thought Qingming was going to attack him, and hurriedly shouted, Don't. I'll tell you, isn't it okay?" However, Qingming ignored the other party and directly performed the Jinjutsu, Sharingan. Instead of wasting time with the other party, Qingming would rather consume a little chakra and search his memory directly. As Qingming's illusion was launched, the other party's voice stopped abruptly, and the whole person's consciousness was immersed in the illusion. Qingming carefully distinguished it, and after confirming that the other party was not disguised, he began to guide the illusion to change, so that he would actively show the relevant memories. Soon, he figured out the whole story. Chapter 310 Trouble. A vanguard? It's really troublesome, Qingming murmured, stretched out his right hand, pinched the neck of the bounty ninja in front of him, and then exerted a little force, and heard a crack. The head of the bounty ninja tilted to the side, and he completely lost his life. Bang! Qingming let go of his hand and let the other party's body fall to the ground, but in his heart he was thinking about the information he had just obtained from the other party's mind. It turned out that it was not that they did not want to attack the leader of the Takumi village, but that they were not sure of capturing him alive. Yes, the black market did have a task related to the other party, but it was not to kill, but to capture. With the strength of these people, if they cooperated with each other, they were sure to kill the leader of the Takumi village. But in that case, they would not get the bounty. So, in order not to waste their efforts and to get a taste of soup, they sold this information to the black market. According to this person's memory, the black market seemed to have hired reliable personnel to take over this task. However, they did not know who took over the task. However, according to the intelligence, the other party would arrive tonight at the latest. Before, these people thought he was the person who took over the task. It was not until he stopped talking to them that they realized that they had recognized the wrong person. Then, they found out that the leader of the Takumi village was killed by him, so they hurriedly chased after him. Of course, this was also intentional. Otherwise, with his speed, if he ran at full speed, these people would not be able to catch up. However, now it seems that he has miscalculated. There may be someone behind these people, and it is a master who can capture a ninja of the level of the Takumi village leader alive. In this case, it will be a bit troublesome. Thinking of the marks left by the other party along the way, Qingming had a headache. Now, he was in a dilemma whether to clean up these marks or not. Just when Qingming was struggling whether to waste some time to erase these traces, a strange breath suddenly broke into his perception range. This breath is a bit unlike a living person, Qingming murmured in his mouth, and he had already drawn a long sword in his hand, and stopped to look at the dense forest in front of him that was crackling and burning. A moment later, a figure passed through the flames and came to him silently. He was wrapped in a black robe, had a pair of emerald green eyes, wore a mask, and had a forehead protector from the Takigakure village on his head, but there was a scratch on it. With such momentum and such dress, even though Qingming had never seen him before, he recognized him at this time. Kakuzu, that's right, the person who came was none other than Kakuzu, one of the famous immortal duo in the Akatsuki organization in the future. He was originally an elite Jonin of the Takigakure village, and accepted the task sent by the village's top leaders to assassinate the first Hokage, Hoshirama Senju. Unfortunately, because of his lack of strength, he was easily suppressed and seriously injured by Hoshirama Senju, and finally escaped with his life because Hoshirama Senju didn't care. However, after he returned to the village after going through so much hardship, what awaited him was the charge of mission failure and severe punishment. Unwilling to give up, Kakuzu chose to escape directly and took away the most precious secret creation of Takigakure village, Earth Grudge. The so-called Earth Grudge is actually a black tentacle similar to a blood vessel. It has the characteristics of being alive. It can not only sew the flesh, but also be used with many secret techniques, such as the secret technique, heart seizure. Using this technique, Kakuzu can forcibly extract the opponent's heart and chakra attributes, and then sew it with his own flesh, thereby inheriting the target's chakra attributes. Now, through the observation of the Sharingan, Qingming can clearly see that there are 5 chakra gathering points in the opponent's body, which are obviously 5 hearts. It is also relying on this technique that Kakuzu has 5 chakra attributes and has a chakra amount far beyond that of ordinary people. While he was observing the other party was also observing him. Especially when he called out the other party's name, the other party looked more carefully. After a moment, Kakuzu said, "Do you know me?" Hearing this, Qingming wanted to say, "I not only know you, but also know your past and present lives." Unfortunately, these words could not be said. However, what he did not expect was that the people hired by the black market this time would be the other party. As a ninja who has lived from the Warring States period to the present, Kakuzu has experienced countless battles, and his combat experience is so rich that Qingming dare not imagine it. In this case, Qingming would definitely not be able to compete in combat skills. However, he was not too afraid. Not to mention that he has already understood the other party's intelligence clearly, the existence of the Mangekyo Sharingan alone gives him enough confidence to face the other party. Although he is unlikely to use it, having a sword but not using it and no sword available are completely two different concepts. Seeing that Qingming did not answer his question for a long time, Kakuzu suddenly said, "Ghost Sword Qingming, the bounty is 17 million taels, you remember this clearly," Qingming complained in his heart. Then he heard Kakuzu continue to say, "You killed my target, didn't you?" Without waiting for Qingming to answer, he glanced at the corpse under Qingming's feet and said, "Your strength is not bad, then use your life to compensate for my loss." After that, he came directly in front of Qingming with a flash body technique and then threw a punch. The opponent changed his face at a speed that caught him off guard. Fortunately, Qingming had been vigilant since the opponent appeared, and with a powerful insight of the Sharingan, he reacted in time. He tilted his head slightly and avoided the attack by a hair's breadth. Not only that, he also took the opportunity to counterattack. Swish, the knife flashed. Qingming made a diagonal move, and the long knife in his hand passed through the opponent's armpit and cut straight up. If this hit, with the sharpness of the Kusanagi sword, at least one of the opponent's arms could be taken away. However, at the critical moment, Kakuzu retracted his fist, completed the seal with both hands, and performed the B-level ninjutsu, Earth Style, Earth Spear. In an instant, his skin turned black and was as hard as diamond. Ding! Qingming's long sword slashed at his body, making a crisp sound of metal clashing. Kakuzu had a blank expression throughout the whole process, and his right arm clamped down hard, trying to clamp Qingming's long sword. At the same time, he swung his left fist and attacked Qingming's face. However, Qingming's reaction was not to be underestimated. Almost at the moment he made a move, He drew back the long sword and stepped back. Boom! Kakuzu's powerful punch missed, and Qingming did not hesitate at all, immediately swung the long sword in his hand and chopped at the opponent's neck. In order to increase the lethality, he also injected wind-style chakra into the long sword, so that the surface of the blade was covered with a thin layer of wind blade. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Test. Squeak! A sharp friction sound was heard. Qingming's long sword slashed across Kakuzu's throat, leaving a shallow white mark. Seeing this, Qingming frowned slightly and said inwardly, "What a pity, he has not developed lightning attribute chakra. Otherwise the restraint relationship between lightning attribute and earth attribute will definitely have a better effect than wind attribute. Therefore, he can't even break the opponent's defense. Fortunately, maintaining this level of ninjutsu consumes a huge amount of chakra, even Kakuzu can't keep it up." With this thought, Qingming began to exert all his strength, dancing the longsword in his hand with great vigor, attacking Kakuzu one after another. For a while, Kakuzu had no power to fight back and could only passively resist. Despite this, the opponent's expression still did not change, just staring at him with a pair of creepy green eyes. Seeing this, Qingming was not polite either, and the hypnotic effect of the Sharingan was stimulated, and the opponent's expression couldn't help but be dazed. Qingming seized the opportunity and stabbed with a knife, aiming directly at the opponent's eyes. Although Earth Escape, Earth Spear can make the body as hard as iron, some vulnerable parts of the human body are difficult to defend. For example, even if the Earth Escape, Earth Spear is used, if it is really stabbed, it will only take one knife. Sensing the danger, Kakuzu woke up from his trance, a flash of cold light flashed, and almost instinctively, he raised his right hand and blocked it. Ding! Qingming's long sword stabbed the opponent's palm, pushing him back several steps and hitting a big tree behind. Many leaves were shaken and fell, but he did not hurt the opponent. At this time, Kakuzu had already seen the situation in front of him, and then he closed his 5 fingers and tried to grab Qingming's long sword in his palm. But Qingming's reaction was so fast. Almost at the moment he took action, he had already drawn out a long sword and slashed it horizontally, cutting straight into the opponent's carotid artery. Even though Kakuzu had Earth-style, Earth Spear as a defense and was not afraid of the blade, this powerful and heavy blade would still hurt him if it hit him. Not only that, defending against such an attack would also consume more chakra. So, in order to save chakra and reduce pain, he quickly ducked and avoided Qingming's blade. However, after he dodged, the big tree behind him was in trouble. Qingming's long sword was wrapped in wind-style chakra, which could easily penetrate even stones, let alone a tree. When his blade fell on the tree trunk, it was like a hot knife cutting butter. Almost without any obstacles, the tree fell. The trunk fell, and Qingming quickly retreated and pulled away. However, unlike him, Kakuzu actually took the damage and only dodged in a small area on the spot, and did not leave the area where the big tree fell. Although this made him consume more chakra, it also gave him a chance to counterattack. Fire style, headache. Suddenly, a fierce flame appeared, instantly burning the branches and leaves along the way into ashes, and rushed towards Qingming. Although Qingming did not see the other party's seal at the first time because of the obstruction of the branches and leaves of the big tree, he still reacted when the flames came. He saw his hands quickly forming the 5 seals of Yin CZC Yin. And a water wall suddenly appeared to block the attack of the flames. That's right, this is the ninjutsu, water style, water array wall. After more than a week of practice, his water style, water array wall has already been upgraded from LV1, 119 out of 200, to LV3, 294/1000. It is precisely because of this that he can use it in time and block Kakuzu's fire style attack. The water wall and the flame met, making a sizzling sound, and a large amount of water vapor came out, making the surroundings white. Qingming didn't care too much about this. Such water vapor came quickly, but it also disappeared quickly, and it would not affect his Sharingan. However, he soon found something wrong. There was no other reason. The flames and water walls had disappeared, but the white fog around them increased instead of decreasing, and visibility was reduced again. Qingming carefully felt it and immediately found the existence of water escape chakra in the white fog. Obviously, This was Kokuzu taking the opportunity to perform the ninjutsu, water escape, mist hidden technique. Although the other party had not performed this technique in his previous life, as an old guy who had lived for decades, it seemed nothing strange that he had learned such a widely circulated ninjutsu. In fact, it was not just this ninjutsu, but other unknown ninjutsu that the other party might have learned a lot. In this way, it would definitely not work to fight with the other party, and it was necessary to break the situation with absolute strength. With this thought in mind, Qingming formed seals with both hands, mobilized a large amount of chakra, and performed the ninjutsu, wind escape, great breakthrough. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color, and a violent wind tornado appeared, stirring up the white fog around in a breath. When the storm stopped, the surroundings were already in a mess. At the same time, it became empty. Qingming looked around, but did not see Kokuzu. At this moment, two hands suddenly emerged from the ground and grabbed his ankles. Without any hesitation, Qingming slashed down with a long knife in his hand, instantly cutting off the two arms. However, the next moment, a large number of black tentacles like blood vessels emerged from the two flying broken arms. These tentacles waved randomly in the air, as if looking for something. Then, dense black tentacles emerged from the ground and entangled with those black tentacles in midair. Then, they quickly merged and finally became one. Even though he was mentally prepared, when Qingming saw this scene, he couldn't help but feel a little numb. He jumped a few times and planned to get away from these tentacles. However, Kokuzu was relentless. After reconnecting his hands, he immediately controlled his two hands to grab him through the air. Qingming did not hesitate at all, immediately formed a seal, and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. Boom! A huge fireball appeared and smashed directly at the two palms. However, the two palms were unexpectedly flexible and avoided Qingming's attack with just a turn. Qingming retreated again, and changed his hand seals on the way, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. Swoosh! A transparent wind blade flew out and swept across the two palms at an extremely fast speed. Sizzle! A sound like a rag being torn sounded. The two palms were directly cut in half by the wind blade. With a powerful insight of the Sharingan, Qingming could see that at the moment the wind blade approached, they had already made a dodging move. But in the end, they were still a beat slower than the wind blade. However, this was also normal. Wind style, wind blade was originally a ninjutsu known for its attack speed, and with his Sharingan's prediction, it was not surprising that it hit the opponent. However, the subsequent changes in the two palms surprised him. Chapter 312 Fierce Battle. Then, more fine black tentacles emerged from the four broken palms, intertwined with each other, and merged into one again, forming two complete palms. Qingming originally thought that those black tentacles could only sew up limbs. Now it seems that it is far more than that, and it can even sew up a palm that is cut in half. By analogy, even if Gyouto is dismembered, he may be able to recover. How can I say it? As expected of one of the famous immortal duo in later generations, with this recovery ability, he can basically not be considered a human. Now Gyouto is probably already integrated with a strange secret creation of Earth Resentment U. Although he still looks like a human on the outside, his essence may have changed a long time ago. No wonder I felt that his breath was not right before, so this is it, Qingming muttered to himself. At this moment, the two palms grabbed him again. Seeing this, Qingming stopped dodging and drew out his long sword. The LV-700, perfect realm of swordsmanship was displayed by him. In a flash, the two palms were cut into several pieces. During this time, the black tentacles wanted to attack and pierce into his body, but they were all blocked by his superb swordsmanship. Seeing that this move could not take down Qingming, Kokuzu no longer hid, and immediately emerged from the ground, and then tore off the black robe on his body. There were traces of black stitching all over his body, and the whole person seemed to be cut into countless pieces and then stitched together again. It looked very scary. Not only that, there were four strange masks on his back, stitched together with his flesh. Qingming knew that this was the attribute mask formed by Kokuzu using the secret technique, heart capture, to extract the heart and chakra attributes of others. Each one was equivalent to Kokuzu's life. Unless these four masks were destroyed together with his own heart, it would be impossible to kill the other party. While Qingming was thinking about how to do this, Gyouto turned around, staring at Qingming with a pair of green eyes, and said, "You don't seem to be surprised at my change at all, why?" Hearing this, Qingming smiled and said nothing. "Don't tell me, Gyouzu groaned and said to himself, "Forget it, I will investigate it after I kill you, huh." Then, he heard a low shout, and the place where the mask and the flesh were sutured on the back suddenly collapsed, and a large number of black tentacles sprang out. These tentacles twisted and entangled, and finally formed 4 tall black humanoid monsters around him. And at the head of these monsters, there were attribute masks. Qingming could clearly feel the strong chakra from these masks. Wind, fire, thunder, water, the main body is earth attribute, Qingming thought in his heart. At this time, Gyouzu shook his body and completely disconnected the tentacles of the masked monster in itself, making their movements more flexible. In this way, Qingming was besieged by 5 people facing them, and they were 5 people who cooperated tacitly and had complementary attributes. We can't let them attack first, Qingming thought of this instantly. Then, he raised his hand and formed a seal, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. Swoosh! A transparent wind blade shot out quickly, aiming directly at the masked monster with thunder attribute. It may sound long, but it actually happened in an instant. He wanted to take advantage of the opportunity when the opponent was not ready yet, and use the attribute restraint to destroy one of the opponent's hearts. Unfortunately, Gyouzu had too much combat experience. After seeing his wind style, wind blade before, he had been on guard against this move. Therefore, the moment he attacked, he controlled the masked monster with thunder attribute to dodge. Qingming's wind blade missed, and his face looked a little unhappy. But Gyouzu's face was also unhappy. Then he heard him say, "You really know a lot of information about me." Obviously, the other party had seen some clues from Qingming's direct attack on the masked monster instead of him. Under normal circumstances, at this time, people who don't know his ability well will regard these masked monsters as his summons. In this way, the target of the attack will be placed on him, in order to kill him with one blow. But what about Qingming? He directly aimed at these masked monsters, and they were the lightning-attributed masked monsters that were most restrained by wind escape. In this way, combined with his reaction when he saw the masked monsters appear, Gyouzu could not help but draw a conclusion that Qingming's understanding of his abilities was far beyond his imagination. And this also gave Gyouzu a little bad thought in his heart. However, he quickly suppressed these thoughts. As a ninja with extremely rich combat experience, he knew that the more times like this, the less he could think, otherwise he would easily fall into the opponent's trap. With this thought, Gyouzu immediately controlled the 4 masked monsters and surrounded and killed Qingming together. Because these monsters can fly, they quickly surrounded Qingming. Zizzy! A burst of electric current sounded. The next moment, a flash of lightning flashed, and the lightning-attributed masked monster opened its mouth and spit out a sharp thunder spear. Crackling thunder and lightning sounded. A lightning bolt came from far away and swept straight towards Qingming. However, Qingming was well prepared, and with a flash of the blinking body technique, he dodged the lightning attack. However, as soon as his feet landed on the ground, water balls were spit out from the mouth of the water-attributed masked monster, like cannonballs, and hit him directly. As a last resort, Qingming could only dodge again. With a powerful insight of the Sharingan, he narrowly avoided the attack. Seeing this, Gyouzu immediately controlled the wind-attributed masked monster to fly to the side of Qingming, then opened his mouth wide and performed a B-level ninjutsu, wind style, pressure. The next moment, a strong wind hit. Qingming's Sharingan turned rapidly, carefully distinguishing the distribution of wind pressure in the air, twisted his body, and hid himself in the area with the lowest density of wind-style chakra. In the end, with the help of this force, he fell far to the ground. But this is not the end. Because the power of wind style, pressure is far more than that, although he hid himself in an area with low density of wind style chakra with the help of the Sharingan and avoided the first wave of attacks. But when these strong winds smashed the ground, they still caused huge damage, making it impossible for him to stand, and subsequent damage followed. A large amount of soil and gravel was lifted up and hit Qingming. Qingming kept dodging until a few breaths later. And then he completely escaped the attack range of this ninjutsu. At this time, the jungle around him that he had cleared once before with the wind style, great breakthrough was plowed again. Not bad. You are the first ninja to escape from my joint attack. Suddenly, Gyouzu's low voice came from a distance. Qingming was speechless when he heard it, and thought to himself, isn't this what you said to praise Kakashi? How can it be applied to me? However, to be honest, the opponent's combo is indeed powerful. Don't think that he can dodge easily, That's because he has the Sharingan, which can observe any movement around him, and his own quality is not bad. If it were someone else, I'm afraid they would have died in the previous attack before the wind attribute masked monster showed its power. You know, none of the ninjutsu that Kakuzu used to control these masked monsters was simple, and the lowest difficulty to learn was at level B. Although there is no direct relationship between the power of ninjutsu and the difficulty to learn, it is undeniable that the more difficult the ninjutsu is to learn, the more powerful it is. In this way, coupled with Kakuzu's huge chakra, you can imagine their power. Even so, Qingming still dodged it, which is indeed a compliment. Unfortunately, Qingming was not impressed by his compliments. Now, he just wanted to deal with the opponent and return to the battlefield as soon as possible. Chapter 313 Tangled. With this thought, Qingming mobilized a large amount of wind escape chakra, injected it into the long sword, and wrapped his whole body. Then, a glimmer of green light emerged. In an instant, Qingming performed the instant sword technique. That's right, it was the instant sword technique. Before, after he developed the instant sword technique, he had not used it many times because the short sword was damaged and he could not perform it. Now, he finally had a good weapon, and he would naturally not throw it away. So, he saw that his body suddenly turned into a residual image and came to the nearest water attribute masked monster that was about to launch a sneak attack on him. Swoosh! A flash of knife light passed by. The longsword in Qingming's hand slashed directly at the mask part of the monster. This is its vital point. As long as it can be destroyed, it can be killed, and Jyoto will lose his life. Unfortunately, things did not go as planned. At this critical moment, the black tentacles that made up the monster's body suddenly stretched out, entangled with each other, forming a flesh wall, blocking his knife. A clear feeling of blockage came. Qingming felt that his knife was like cutting on rubber, and it was difficult to bear the force. At this moment, a crackling sound came, and the lightning-attributed masked monster flew to his side and spit out a lightning bolt at him. Qingming reacted quickly and pulled away before the lightning reached him. Not only that, he also completed the seal and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. Whoosh! A transparent wind blade flew out quickly, aiming directly at the lightning-attributed masked monster. However, just like before, it dodged the attack with a clever dance. Kakuzu in the distance was also unceremonious. He changed his hand seal and immediately controlled another masked monster to perform the ninjutsu, fire style, head hard. A small fireball was spit out by the masked monster. The moment it landed, it turned into a raging flame and quickly spread to the surroundings. Its power is simply incomparable to the previous one. Qingming hurriedly retreated until he was far away, then he formed a seal and used the ninjutsu, water style, water array wall. Suddenly, a wall of water appeared, blocking the subsequent rolling heat waves and some tail flames. It must be admitted that it was not easy for him to defeat these four monsters without using the main Gekyo Sharingan. After all, under normal circumstances, apart from the ninjutsu of the three attributes of water, fire, and wind, his most powerful means were nothing more than swordsmanship and illusion. Among them, swordsmanship was not bad against ordinary ninjas, who were all fragile with high attack and low defense. As long as they were hit, they could basically cause damage. But these monsters were different. Their only weak point was the mask on their heads. Even if other parts were cut, it would not be a big deal. In this case, they only needed to defend a little. When necessary, they could also use tentacles to block like the water attribute masked monster. In this way, most of his swordsmanship was wasted. And illusions. These monsters were all controlled by Kakuzu, and they had no brains at all, so how could they be affected by illusions? As for ninjutsu, not to mention that he doesn't know many ninjutsu, there are only a few that can be used now. The attribute restraint alone can reduce the power of his ninjutsu by half. Combining the above 3 points, it can be seen that under normal conditions, he is almost completely suppressed by the opponent, unless he can directly attack Kakuzu's body. Otherwise, he can only waste time and look for the opponent's flaws. But looking at what Kakuzu did, he didn't give him a chance to get close. During the battle just now, he did try to get close to the opponent, but he was blocked back by the four masked monsters controlled by him. What's more, after getting close to the opponent, how to hurt the opponent is also a problem. The heart attribute of his body is earth, and he can instantly perform the ninjutsu earth escape, earth spear, and ordinary physical attack methods are completely ineffective. Among ninjutsu attacks, only lightning escape can pose a greater threat to him. But he doesn't know lightning escape ninjutsu at all. In this case, he can only use other means. But with the opponent's reaction speed, it is estimated that there is a 50% probability that he can dodge. After all, the current Kokuzu is not the Kokuzu that Naruto and others faced later. After guessing that he knew his intelligence, he had been avoiding a head-on confrontation with him. With such a cautious attitude, there is a 50% chance that he underestimated the opponent. Qingming now regrets that he showed that he knew him too well at the beginning of the battle. Otherwise, the current situation might be better. After all, he was still influenced by the memories of his previous life and thought that Kokuzu's strength was just so-so. But after the real fight, he realized that the opponent's strength was far from as bad as he showed in his memory. In fact, if you think about it carefully, even if the opponent's performance in the fight with Naruto and others is not considered weak among the cage-level masters. Even though he was ambushed by Kakashi at the beginning and lost his water attribute mask. Then, he was calculated by Naruto and used Heiden's hand to destroy his earth attribute heart, losing the advantage of complementary attributes. But in the end, it was because of carelessness that Naruto took advantage of the loophole and solved the battle with a wind-style Rasen Shuriken. Otherwise, it would be hard to say who would win and who would lose. Now, Qingming is dealing with Kokuzu, who is in full power and alert. The difficulty can be imagined. It can be said that if he does not open the main Gekyo Sharingan, he alone is basically unlikely to be the opponent of the opponent. But to open the main Gekyo Sharingan, Qingming still has some concerns, that is, whether he can kill the opponent at one time. If he cannot kill him and lets him escape, then it will be a big trouble. As a ninja who has lived from the Warring States period to the present, he must know some secrets about the Sharingan. Even, he has seen the main Gekyo Sharingan. In this way, if he rashly uses the main Gekyo Sharingan, he is likely to be recognized by the opponent. At that time, once the opponent escapes, his relevant information will inevitably be leaked, which he absolutely does not want to see. Just when Qingming was entangled, Kokuzu had already controlled 4 masked monsters to chase him, and various ninjutsu took turns to put him under pressure. Qingming shook his head, temporarily put all kinds of distracting thoughts behind his mind, and began to concentrate on dealing with the attacks of these masked monsters. At the same time, try to rush in front of Kokuzu, imitate Naruto, and use wind-style Rasen Shuriken to kill him with one blow. Kokuzu said he has 5 lives, but if he is really hit by wind-style Rasen Shuriken, it will be useless even if his heart is replaced. The reason is that the fine chakra needles condensed by wind-style Rasen Shuriken will destroy the opponent's body at the cellular level. By then, even if he is still alive, he will not be able to mobilize chakra, so he can do whatever he wants. Coincidentally, after this period of practice, his wind-style Rasen Shuriken has been promoted from LV1, 100/200, to LV3, 174/1000. With such proficiency, it is already useful. Chapter 314, Counterattack. Crack boom bang bang. Unconsciously, several minutes passed. Lightning, wind blades, flames and water balls appeared in turn on the field. Kokuzu controlled 4 masked monsters and continuously attacked Qingming. However, Qingming dodged them one by one with the powerful insight of the Sharingan. Not only that, as long as he had the chance, he would launch a fierce counterattack, which really caused some trouble for Kokuzu. But this also allowed Kokuzu to gradually see his true and false. Finally, after another round of attacks was dodged by Qingming, Kokuzu no longer wasted time and turned on his strongest state, Earth Resentment mode. The black lines stitched all over his body suddenly broke, and a large number of black tentacles sprang out from them. They were entangled with each other, like giant tentacles, covering his whole body. This is not the end. Then, he opened his mouth and spit, and dense black tentacles appeared in his mouth. These tentacles waved randomly in the air, looking extremely creepy. Seeing this, Qingming knew that the other party was going to get serious. So, he immediately formed a seal and performed the ninjutsu water-style, water dragon bullet technique to attack the fire attribute masked monster. Unfortunately, although his water-style, water dragon bullet technique has been promoted to level 3, 101/1000, during this period. But because it originally requires 44 seals, it still cannot be performed in a short period of time until now. Therefore, when he finished forming the seal and performed the ninjutsu, a masked monster had already blocked the fire attribute masked monster. Crack! A flash of lightning flashed by. A dazzling long snake of lightning spewed out of the mouth of the masked monster and entangled a water dragon convinced by Qingming. The next moment, the sizzling lightning spread towards him along the water flow. In order to avoid being electrocuted, Qingming had to interrupt the ninjutsu and kicked the ground with both feet to pull away. At the same time, Kakuto was relentless and continued to control the lightning attribute masked monster to release the lightning style ninjutsu to attack him. For a moment, Qingming was forced to dodge in a panic. After this round of attacks, he found that two masked monsters had merged into Kakuzu's shoulders, one of which was the fire attribute masked monster he wanted to attack before. As for the other one, it was a wind attribute masked monster. Kakuzu watched him from a distance, and the tentacles around him danced, and he flew up. In mid-air, he completed the seal, consumed a huge amount of chakra, and whispered to Qingming, "It's over." As he spoke, the masked monsters on his shoulders suddenly opened their mouths and performed fire style, head hardship and wind style, suppression respectively. The two major ninjutsu merged in the air and eventually turned into compound ninjutsu, flame wind wave. As the saying goes, fire borrows the power of wind, and wind helps the power of fire. When these two ninjutsu merge together, the power they exert is far more than just 1 + 1 = 2. Its effect is not much weaker than the power of some A-level or even S-level ninjutsu. The raging flames fell from the sky, instantly illuminating the entire night sky. Qingming below had nowhere to hide and could only be drowned by the sea of fire. "No," Qingming roared unwillingly. It can be seen that a water wall appeared in front of him. But it did not have any effect in the face of the surging fire waves. In the end, his body was engulfed by the flames. Seeing this scene, Kakuzu's face, which had never changed for thousands of years, finally showed a look of relief. To be honest, Qingming's strength had exceeded his expectations. With a bounty of only 17 million taels, his strength was comparable to some targets with more than 30 million taels. Kakuzu felt that he had lost money on this business. Just as he was thinking about whether he could get some compensation from the black market, a harsh sound like something rubbing suddenly appeared behind him. "What?" Kakuzu was shocked. He did not look back, but immediately controlled a large number of black tentacles to form a thick wall of flesh to block behind him. However, despite this, the sense of crisis in his heart still did not ease much. The feeling of being on the back made him shudder. Without any hesitation, he quickly completed the seal and used his strongest defensive ninjutsu, Earth Style, Earth Spear. He had already sensed that the attack from behind was Wind Style. With the defensive power of Earth Style, Earth Spear, it should not be a problem to block a blow. However, just as he was thinking this, intense pain came over him. He only felt that the flesh wall composed of a large number of tentacles behind him was instantly torn apart by something, and then his body was wrapped in a stream of chakra, making it difficult to move. At the same time, he felt a needle-like feeling all over his body. Even Kakuzu couldn't help but make a sound in the face of this pain that was like 1,000 arrows piercing his heart. That's right, this is the attack of Wind Style, Shuriken. Time went back to a few seconds ago, when Qingming was engulfed by the sea of fire. He opened his main Gekio Sharingan and then used the pupil technique of his left eye, Heaven's Guard. In an instant, he was out of the ninja world, as if he was in two different time and space with a surrounding sea of fire, avoiding all harm. And this was exactly the opportunity he was looking forward to. As for the various performances before being engulfed by the sea of fire, they were just performances. The purpose was to make Kakuzu relax his vigilance. Facts have proved that even a cautious person like Kakuzu can be careless sometimes. Seeing him engulfed by flames, he instinctively relaxed a little. And taking advantage of the time when the other party was relaxed, he came behind Kakuzu at the fastest speed, then released the Heavenly Guardian and performed the ninjutsu, Wind Style, Shuriken. Because the distance was too close, the other party had nowhere to hide and could only defend on the spot, and then he suffered a heavy blow. Wind Style, Shuriken is worthy of being an S-level forbidden technique. Its power easily tore through the tentacle flesh wall that even the Kusanergy sword could hardly penetrate, and directly bombarded Kakuzu. The flesh and blood body was hit by the Wind Style, Shuriken. It can attack at the cellular level, and the end can be imagined. Qingming looked up at Kakuzu, who was wrapped in a huge amount of Wind Style chakra, and waited quietly for the end of the ninjutsu. After a few breaths, there was a bang and Kakuzu fell from the sky, hitting Qingming's feet. Two crisp cracking sounds were heard. The two masks on his shoulders were quietly broken. and the black tentacles connected to them also withered. Not only the two masks, but Kokuzu's heart was also severely damaged. After falling to the ground, it only lasted for less than a breath before it completely stopped beating. But at this time, the opponent was still alive. Qingming looked up at the two masked monsters that were rushing towards him in the sea of fire. He did not choose to stop them, but let them merge into Kokuzu's body. After a while, Kokuzu's heart began to beat again, and his eyes regained some spirit. Unfortunately, he could not do anything because his chakra meridians were destroyed. As Qingming had guessed before, once he was hit by the wind-style Risen Shuriken, it would be useless even if he had 5 lives. However, with the help of the Mangekyo Sharingan, he saw that the black tentacles that merged with it were repairing his body. That is to say, if he is left alone, he may be able to recover his health after a period of time. Of course, it is also possible that he will be the first to give up and die before that. Qingming does not know the details, nor does he want to know. Squeak, the longsword is unsheathed. Puchy Qingming stabbed out with 2 swords, accurately piercing through the only remaining mask and heart of Kokuzu, completely ending his life. Chapter 315 Return. Looking at Kokuzu's body, Qingming thought to himself, I'm afraid no one would know that right here, in this unknown corner, a ninja who ranks among the best in the entire ninja world died quietly like this. I don't know if one day in the future I will die in a corner like him in obscurity. Inexplicably, Qingming felt a sense of panic in his heart. But then he suppressed it. He wanted to transcend this world and live forever. How could he die like this? Concentrating his mind, Qingming stopped thinking and looked around. Without Kokuzu's chakra supply, the sea of fire created by compound ninjutsu, flame wind wave was receding rapidly. However, there were jungles nearby, and many trees had been ignited during this period, so it was not realistic to want all the flames to disappear immediately. Fortunately, this was deep in the jungle, with high humidity, and the fire could not spread at all. Even when it reached a certain level, it would attract heavy rain. By then, the flames would naturally go out. So, he didn't have to worry about anything. It just so happened that the commotion here was already big enough, and Qingming didn't want to stay any longer. So, he found a place where the fire was the most vigorous, threw Kokuzu's body over, and then left on his own. In a flash, time came to the evening of the next day. At this time, Qingming had returned to the coast. Next, just cross the strait in front of you to reach the land of waves and then return to the forward base. However, Qingming was not in a hurry to leave. The next step was a physical job. He had been running for more than 10 hours, and it was time to take a break. Standing on the treetops, looking at the sunset on the sea in the distance, Qingming's thoughts gradually drifted away. By the way, after killing Kokuzu, his luck seemed to have improved a lot. Originally, he thought he would be harassed by other bounty ninjas again. After all, 17 million taels is not a small amount. As the saying goes, people die for money and birds die for food. Such a high bounty is enough for many ninjas to ignore the risks. But what he didn't expect was that he had a smooth journey. Not to mention other bounty ninjas, not even a single accident happened. However, think about it. Everyone who had seen him this time had been killed by him. How could there be other bounty ninjas in a short period of time? As for why it was a short period of time, not forever? Not to mention that his bounty was there, sooner or later someone would find him because of the bounty. Just this matter alone could not be concealed for too long. Although he did it very covertly and the people who should be killed had been killed, there was one thing that could not be hidden no matter what. That was the Kusanagi sword he had taken from the leader of the Takumi village. As long as he continued to use this sword in the future, as his fame increased, he would naturally be noticed. By then, the black market, which had been monitoring the leader of the Takumi village for a long time, would be able to guess the answer with a little association. In this way, they would definitely not mind secretly pushing those bounty ninjas when they accepted the task. After all, he had offended the black market this time. They will definitely not give up. At that time, there will definitely be many people who will attack him. Of course, he can also choose to hide the longsword in his hand. In this way, it will definitely save a lot of trouble. But he spent so much effort to get such a sharp weapon. If he doesn't use it, wouldn't it be a waste of effort? A mere black market and a few bounty ninjas can't make him so afraid. There is a saying that when the enemy comes, the general will be stopped, and when the water comes, the earth will be covered. The rest of the matter will be discussed later. With this thought, Qingming jumped off the treetop, sat on a branch, put the long sword on his knees, and then began to close his eyes and rest. Time passed by every second. In a blink of an eye, the sun fell below the sea level, and night gradually fell. At a certain moment, Qingming opened his eyes, and then he stopped lingering. After restraining his own breath, he immediately dived towards the coast. After avoiding several waves of Konoha patrols and coming to the sea, after determining the direction, he walked on the waves and headed for the location of the forward base of the wave country. However, unlike when they came here, the coastline of the Land of Fire is long, so they don't need to pay too much attention to the direction. As long as they don't deviate too much, they can go ashore. The territory of the Land of Waves is much smaller, so when they go back, they need to pay attention to the direction at all times, otherwise it is easy to go in the wrong direction. What Qingming didn't know was that when he was rushing to the forward base, on the other side, on the sea, there were also several large ships rushing there. From the water flow marks on those ships, we can know that they are the warships of the Hidden Mist Village. At this time, those ships are full of Hidden Mist Village ninjas. Obviously, after more than 10 days of silence, the Mist ninjas have started to move again, and once they make a move, they intend to make a big move, directly raid Konoha's forward base in the Land of Waves, a few hours later. East of the Land of Waves, about 10 kilometers away from the forward base. In a sentry tower built on a reef, a Konoha ninja suddenly changed his face and blew the whistle on his chest. Suddenly, the shrill whistle resounded throughout the sentry tower. A chaotic sound of footsteps came, and a special Jonin came to the top of the sentry tower. As soon as he appeared, he asked, "Quartz, what happened?" Hearing his question, the Chunin who had just blown the whistle immediately replied, "It's the warships of the Hidden Mist Village, they are coming, how many are there?" The special Jonin was still calm and immediately asked the key question. "4, the Chunin named Quartz replied. Hearing this, the special Jonin breathed a sigh of relief. According to past experience, the 4 warships of the Hidden Mist Village can transport about 200 to 300 ninjas. Although this number is not small, it is equivalent to the number of ninjas deployed by Konoha at the forward base. If so many Mist ninjas suddenly launched an attack and caught Konoha off guard, it might really make them suffer a big loss. But now that the other party has been discovered in advance, there is nothing to be afraid of." With this thought, Kamda Ying asked again, "Where's the direction?" "This way," Quartz pointed to the southeast. Seeing this, Kamda Ying Zuru took the monocular telescope from Quartz and looked over there. With the help of moonlight, he saw 4 large ships at the sea level. Those ships were pitch black, sailing on the sea. Like ghost ships. Kanda Yingzuru knew that they were not ghost ships, but the Kurigakure village deliberately turned off the lights on the ships in order to reduce the probability of being discovered. Unfortunately, they were unlucky. This reef sentry tower was built by Konoha not long ago while the Kurigakure village was quiet, and it was not included in the Kurigakure village's intelligence. Therefore, before they could get close, their whereabouts were discovered. Chapter 316 Mission. After observing for a while, Kamda Ying put down the monocular telescope in his hand. After thinking for a while, he bit his thumb and let the blood drip. Then, he put his hands together, quickly formed the 5 seals of Hai Suyu Shin Wei, and performed the spiritual calling technique. Bang! A cloud of chakra smoke exploded. A slender crane appeared in the field. Kanda Ying didn't waste any words, immediately took out a pen and paper, wrote a secret letter, and stuffed it into the letter box on the opponent's leg. Then, he patted its back and said, "Hessian, send this letter to the forward base immediately." Li hearing this, the crane named Hessian cried out. Then, it nodded, flapped its wings, and its body rushed into the sky like a sharp arrow and disappeared into the sky. Looking at its back as it left, Kamda Ying breathed a sigh of relief. After doing all this, he said to Quartz and the Konoha ninjas who came later, "The support from the base will arrive soon. Next, everyone keep a close eye on the enemy's movements and make sure they are always under our surveillance." "Yes, Captain," several Konoha ninjas immediately responded. Then, they started to do their own things. A few minutes later, going into the base, a shrill alarm suddenly sounded. In the room, Qingming's shadow clone suddenly opened his eyes and thought to himself that it was not good. Soon, a messenger Chunin found him and asked him to rush to the meeting room immediately. The shadow clone did not dare to neglect it and rushed to the meeting room as soon as possible. Not only him, but all the Jonin in the base quickly rushed over. The ninja who presided over the meeting was an Uchiha Jonin. He did not say a word and conveyed the news of the upcoming attack of the Mist Ninja to everyone at the fastest speed. Then, without discussing with everyone, he started to arrange tasks directly. And when he opened his mouth, he mentioned Qingming's name. Qingming, yes, the shadow clone stood up immediately after hearing this. Then the Uchiha Jonin said, you will lead the first and second teams to set off immediately and rush to the number 3 sentry tower as quickly as possible. This is the mission requirement. As he said this, he threw a scroll to him. The shadow clone immediately took it, opened it, and quickly scanned it, and breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he closed the scroll and replied, yes, Captain, yes. The Uchiha Jonin nodded and said, okay, you go down and prepare. Yes, Qingming responded for the last time and left the meeting room in a hurry. In the meeting room, the voice of the Uchiha Jonin continued. One by one, the Jonins were assigned tasks and then walked out, with either secret joy or seriousness on their faces. However, these had little to do with Qingming, because he had already set off with the first and second teams. The so-called Sentry Tower number 3 was actually the Reef Sentry Tower guarded by Kanda Ying, and it was also the Sentry Tower closest to the Mist Ninja warship. Uchiha Jonin arranged him to go here, and he brought the most elite first and second teams, which shows his recognition of his strength. However, the Shadow Clone did not want to get this recognition at all. After all, he was not the original body, how could he have such strength? But in the meeting room, he could not say it clearly, so he could only bite the bullet and take it. Fortunately, his mission was not to confront the assault force of the Hidden Mist Village. Uchiha Jonin gave him 2 mission requirements. First, if the Hidden Mist Ninja discovered the number 3 sentry tower and launched an attack, then their mission was to delay the opponent and buy at least 10 minutes of defense time for the base. Second, if the Hidden Mist Ninja did not find them, or found them but ignored them, then their mission was to wait for the Hidden Mist Ninja to fight with the base, and then launch a surprise attack from the rear, so as to attack the opponent together with the base. According to the information sent back by Kanda Ying, the direction of the 4 warships of the Hidden Mist Village was obviously more inclined to rush directly to the forward base. In other words, the possibility of them delaying time was relatively small. And this gave them a relatively large operating space. As the saying goes, eat as much as you can without a diamond drill. Although he doesn't have much affection for his subordinates, these ninjas, he will not deliberately take them to die. It is precisely because there is room for turning around that he will take on this task. Otherwise, even if it will arouse some suspicion, he will not take on this task. In addition, he has another reason to accept this task, that is, according to the time calculation, the main body should be almost back. As long as the war does not end quickly, as long as it lasts a little longer, it should be possible to wait for the main body to return. By then, even if there are any problems, it can be solved, in a flash. 20 minutes passed. Qingming brought 2 teams, a total of 35 people, to the Reef Sentry Tower and met Kanda Ying. When the other party saw him, he also became excited. After all, the name of Qingming Ghost Sword has slowly spread in these days. Although because of the retreat strategy of the Hidden Mist Village these days, he has not been given the opportunity to show his strength. However, the news that he was ambushed by the elite troops of the Hidden Mist Village on his way to support and killed several of the other side's Jonin had already spread. Especially there were 2 of the 7 ninja swordsmen in it, which made everyone admire him even more. Of course, the reason why this news spread so quickly was also because the Uchiha clan was building momentum for him. As a wealthy family in Konoha, what the Uchiha clan needs is reputation. Coincidentally, what Qingming did was in line with the current needs, and the Uchiha clan naturally did not hesitate to invest the corresponding resources. As for these things, Qingming probably knew something, but he ignored it. Reputation is sometimes a burden, but at the same time, if used well, it is also a sharp weapon that can save him a lot of trouble. No, Kanda Ying saw him and immediately regarded him as the backbone, and the handover of command was not delayed at all. As for being targeted by ninjas from other countries, with his current strength and record, wouldn't the enemy target him if he didn't publicize it? Kidding. Not only will they not relax their targeting, they will even intensify it. After all, it is the consensus of the 5 major ninja villages to kill the geniuses of other ninja villages. War is not justified on the front battlefield, but also a calculation in secret. If the enemy ninja village can be made to be in a state of transition, even if they lose this war, they will have a chance to fight back in the next war. So, to some extent, This matter is as important as the fight on the front battlefield. In this way, it is simply a dream to expect that the enemy will let you go if you keep a low profile. What's more, he has become famous, so he can't keep a low profile anymore. It is for this reason that he did not stop the propaganda of the Uchiha clan. In this case, only by making himself stronger can he withstand the temptation and targeting of the outside world again and again. The only thing to be thankful for is that he had quietly opened the main Gekai of Sharingan when he was not famous, and had the ability to overturn the table. In this way, it's just a little fame, and he doesn't care at all. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming cast his eyes on Kanda Ying in front of him. Chapter 317 Backhand. What's the situation now? Qingming asked Kanda Ying. Upon hearing this, Kanda Ying immediately handed over the monocular telescope in his hand and said, "The 4 warships are still moving forward. It seems that they are going to attack the forward base directly." This answer did not surprise Qingming. He nodded, took the telescope from Kanda Ying, and looked directly in the direction pointed by the other party. The moon tonight was particularly bright, and Qingming easily saw the 4 warships of the hidden mist village. At this time, they were closer to the reef sentry tower, but they did not come here, but formed an angle with this side and rushed towards the direction of the forward base of the wave country. It was indeed the same as Kanda Ying said, the other party was likely to attack the base directly. In this case, his task was to wait for the battle to break out, and then launch a surprise attack from behind. In this way, he could delay for a while. At this point in time, every minute of delay would increase the possibility of his body returning. So, naturally, he would delay as long as he could. However, just as he was thinking this, he suddenly saw several black shadows jumping off the boat. Qingming suddenly took out the single-channel telescope and opened the Sharingan. Although the Sharingan's long-range vision ability is average, with the help of its powerful insight, he can still see something. It's the Mist Ninja. Qingming's heart moved, and he thought to himself, is it coming this way? That's right, the Mist Ninjas who jumped off the boat were stepping on the sea and running straight towards them. And behind them, there were also Mist Ninjas jumping off the other 3 ships. In the end, there were nearly 50 people in the team coming towards them. This made Qingming's face look very bad. Seeing him like this, the others asked, "Captain, what's wrong?" "The enemy found this place," Qingming replied concisely. "What?" Hearing this, the others looked over there, either anxiously or calmly. With the help of the bright moonlight, they could roughly see that there were some black shadows running towards them. Qingming picked up the telescope again and carefully observed the movements of the ships. Seeing that they were still heading towards the land of waves, he breathed a sigh of relief. The fact that the ships did not turn around meant that although the enemy had discovered them, they did not take them seriously. And the mere 50 enemies were still within the acceptable range. With this thought in mind, Qingming immediately ordered, "Everyone, prepare for battle." "Yes, Captain," the others immediately responded. However, before they left, Qingming said again, "Pay attention, when the battle starts, delay as much time as possible, and wait until those ships are far away, then go all out to annihilate this group of enemies." The reason why Qingming made such an arrangement was, first, to prevent the Mist Ninja from being unable to defeat them and calling for support, and second, to really delay time. The other Konoha ninjas obviously understood his first meaning and hurriedly said, "I know, Captain." "Yes," Qingming nodded and asked them to go down and prepare. As for the fact that they could not support the front battlefield in time, Qingming did not care much. They have already delayed the enemies that exceeded their number, what else can they do? We can't just leave all the battles to them. Therefore, Qingming was not worried about the subsequent difficulties. Now, he just hoped that his original body would come back soon. Time went back to a few minutes ago. On the other side, after several hours of long journey, Qingming finally crossed the strait and arrived at the land of waves. After that, he ran all the way and came to the vicinity of the forward base. However, before he got close, he found that something was wrong. Late at night, the base, which should have been silent, was in full swing. From the looks of them, it seemed that they were building a defense line. In just a moment, Qingming understood that the enemy was coming. Because he was not clear about the situation of the shadow clone for the time being, he did not show up rashly, but performed the transformation technique and changed his identity. Then, relying on his familiarity with the base and his clever method of restraining his breath, he sneaked into the base and returned to his residence. Opening the secret compartment under the bed, Qingming took out a piece of paper from it, and saw that the shadow clone's mission this time and his various plans were written in Chinese characters on it. This was a backup plan he had prepared long ago, in order to prevent such a situation from happening. Now it seems that this preparation was not in vain. Number 3 Sentry Tower. Delay time, Qingming murmured, and a ball of fire chakra gathered in his palm, burning the paper in his hand to ashes. Then, without any pause, he sneaked out of the base again, found a deserted place, and jumped into the sea. After swimming in the sea for a long time, he surfaced, then walked on the waves and ran towards the number 3 Sentry Tower from another direction. About 20 minutes later, Qingming came near the number 3 Sentry Tower. Before he got close, he heard the sound of fighting. Waves of chakra waves came, showing that the battle over there was quite fierce. Qingming was worried that the shadow clone could not hold on, so he immediately speeded up. However, the next moment, a memory suddenly flooded into his mind. Qingming hurriedly stopped and quickly browsed these memories. There was no surprise, these memories were sent by the shadow clone. Qingming only roughly scanned the memories of the previous 3 days, and then began to focus on browsing all the memories of the other party tonight, especially the memories before death. After a moment, he opened his eyes and muttered, "It's her," at the same time. On the other side, Terumi Mei looked at Qingming, who suddenly turned into chakra smoke and dissipated. She was shocked and thought to herself, "It's the shadow clone." Then, she looked around vigilantly, as if she was afraid that Qingming's real body would come out from somewhere. However, what confused her was that Qingming's real body never appeared. That's right, it was Terumi Mei who killed Qingming's shadow clone. Originally, after 3 days of consumption, the shadow clone's chakra was not much. As a result, she encountered a master like Terumi Mei, and it was indeed a bit unstoppable. Although Terumi Mei is still a little immature and has average combat experience, she has 2 bloodline limits and huge chakra. In this way, under the long-range and large-scale attack, the weakness of the shadow clone's weak ability to withstand injuries was exposed at once. Although the shadow clone struggled hard, trying to play to its strengths and avoid its weaknesses, get closer to the opponent, and use swordsmanship to restrict the performance of its ninjutsu, it was never successful. Yes, Terumi Mei's combat experience was very average, but knowing that the opponent had the title of Ghost Sword, it was impossible for her to let the opponent get close to her. So, the shadow clone was exhausted to death by the opponent. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 Accident. Swish! Just when Terumi was alert, a mist ninja who was about 30 years old suddenly appeared beside her. She said in doubt, "What was that just now?" The person who spoke had long gray-blue hair, his right eye was wrapped in a black cloth, and there was a seal talisman hanging on each earlobe. It was the elite Jonin of the Mist-Hidden Ninja, Qing, who had taken a Byakugan from the Hyuga clan on the battlefield a few months ago. At this time, under the black cloth on his right eye, was the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan, which had the ability to see through, see far and see. The sentry tower where Qingming's shadow clone was staying was discovered by him with his Byakugan. It can be said that the other party was the fuse of this battle. At this time, hearing his words, Terumi said seriously, "Yes, it's just as you thought. The one who just fought with me was just a shadow clone of the ghost sword Qingming." At this point, she paused, glanced around, and then continued, "Qing, you came at the right time. Quickly use the Byakugan to see where the opponent's real body is hiding." Hearing this, Qing also knew that the situation was urgent. Without any nonsense, she immediately concentrated her mind, mobilized chakra, and activated the Byakugan under the black cloth. In an instant, everything around him appeared in his mind. This feeling of seeing through everything made him feel deeply intoxicated. However, he remembered the important things and hurriedly searched for Qingming's traces. However, after 2 minutes, fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and he still did not find Qingming's traces. When he told this result to Terumi shook her head decisively and said, "Impossible, the opponent has been under minnows all the time. Even if he left for a short time and performed the shadow clone technique, he couldn't have left too far, unless what?" Qing said on the side. Unless the opponent was just a shadow clone from the beginning, Madarumi replied hesitantly. What? How is this possible? Hearing this answer, Qing didn't believe it at first, but soon realized that there seemed to be no other possibility except this answer. He didn't believe that the opponent's hiding method could avoid the detection of the Byakugan. As his most precious trophy, Qing's trust in the Byakugan was higher than that of many Hyuga clan ninjas. He didn't believe, and didn't want to believe, that Qingming could avoid the detection of the Byakugan. So, Qingming was a shadow clone from the beginning. But the question was still the same: where was the opponent's real body? Was there any conspiracy? Just as the two were thinking, some commotion occurred in Konoha. As the captain of everyone, with the name of Ghost Sword, Qingming was highly expected by everyone, and many people secretly watched his every move. Originally, Qingming was unable to restrict Darumi Mei, which disappointed many people and felt that he was not worthy of the name. After he was suppressed by Darumi Mei, this distrust became more obvious. Until he was killed by Darumi Mei, the restlessness of the people reached the limit. However, when they found that it was only a shadow clone of Qingming who died, they regained hope and the falling morale recovered a little. However, as Qingming's body did not appear for a long time, their hearts began to become uneasy again. Ninjas are also human beings. Without a backbone, they will also be afraid and panic. So, gradually, there was a commotion in the Konoha team. Darumi Mei noticed this keenly, so she ignored Qingming, who had not appeared for a long time, and attacked these Konoha ninjas instead. Her idea was very simple, that is, to take advantage of the unstable morale of the Konoha army and make a concerted effort to completely defeat this army. In this way, even if Qingming has any plans, she can deal with it calmly. With her joining, Konoha is indeed a little overwhelmed. The two teams that Qingming brought from the forward base are both elite. Although their morale is a little low, they will not collapse at the touch of a button. Of course, this is also partly due to Uchiha Qingming, a loyal supporter of Qingming. He shouted loudly, "Everyone hold on, the captain will come to support you soon." The others heard him and didn't understand why, but seeing his identity as an Uchiha clan member, they thought he knew some inside information, which revived some spirits. However, the others were relieved, but Uchiha Qingming's situation was not good. Qing was originally searching for Qingming's traces, and now suddenly heard his shouting, and immediately rushed over, as if he was going to take him down and find out Qingming's plan. Obviously, he also thought that Qingming had some plans. Unfortunately, no one knew that what appeared in front of them from beginning to end was really just a shadow clone of Qingming. But Qingming's real body was indeed on the way. A few minutes later, Qingming arrived at the battlefield. At this time, the sea area had become a mess, and the two sides were fighting fiercely. It was almost time to decide the outcome. The situation could be said to be very urgent. However, despite this, Qingming still did not rush to take action. The Sharingan opened instantly, and he began to observe the situation quietly. After a moment, he retracted his sight, took a deep breath, and then dived into the water, swimming towards the direction of Darumi Mei at a very fast speed. As the saying goes, capture the thief first. After the observation just now, combined with the memory picture sent back by the shadow clone before, he can basically conclude that Darumi Mei is the leader of these mist ninjas. In this way, just like Darumi Mei came directly to him just now, he was also ready to take down the other party, so as to hit the morale of the mist ninjas. However, the development of things is always full of surprises. Just when he was about to approach Darumi Mei, a figure suddenly fell from a distance, smashed through the sea surface, and passed directly by him. The powerful insight of the Sharingan allowed him to distinguish the identity of the other party at the first time. It was Uchiha Qingming. At this time, the other party was spitting blood, and his body seemed to be hit by something, falling fiercely to the bottom of the sea. Qingming looked up and saw Qing's figure following closely and coming to his head. The Byakugan opened instantly, and Qing was about to search for the trace of Uchiha Qingming. However, the next moment, his expression changed drastically, and the whole person quickly retreated to the back. Bang! Water splashed everywhere. A figure suddenly jumped out of the water. The sound of a sharp blade being unsheathed sounded. A flash of cold light flashed. A long knife passed directly across Qing's chest. The sharp wind escape chakra carried on it directly tore his clothes, leaving a shallow blood mark on his chest. It was only because the other party reacted quickly that he retreated at the first time, otherwise it would not be as simple as leaving a wound. "It's you." Qing retreated several steps, covering his chest, looking at Qingming, and said in shock. That's right, the person who made the move was none other than Qingming. The moment the other party opened his Byakugan, he knew he could no longer hide, so he simply attacked him directly. Unfortunately, the other party had Byakugan, so he was on guard and still managed to dodge. Chapter 319 Take Action. Yes, it's me. Facing Qingji's eyes, Qingming replied calmly. As he spoke, he swung his long sword, letting the blood on it splash. The whole person's movements were very casual, fully demonstrating what it means to be fearless. Since the plan of sneak attack can no longer be implemented, Qingming is not in a hurry, and simply shows up openly. In this way, it will also boost the morale of his own side. And just as he expected, with his appearance, the surviving Konoha ninjas immediately lit up their eyes, and their whole body became much stronger. This is the role of the leader in the big melee. As long as Qingming's flag does not fall, the ninjas under his command will not collapse across the board. Splash! A sound of splashing water was heard. Uchiha finally climbed out of the water. He covered his chest and said to Qingming, "Be careful, he is very strong." Yes, hearing this, Qingming nodded and said, "I know, opportunity, in front." Seeing Qingming look away, Qing secretly said good opportunity and quickly threw the kunai in his hand. Whoosh! A subtle sound of breaking through the air came. Qingming glanced at it, swung the longsword in his hand, and accurately hit the kunai away. Qing didn't care about this. He quickly formed seals with both hands, opened his mouth, and performed the ninjutsu, water style, water wave. Although this is only a relatively basic sea-level ninjutsu, it is simple to form seals. It only requires 3 seals to perform, which is just right for sneak attacks now. Originally, Qing thought he could take advantage of this to catch Qingming off guard. However, he never thought that almost at the same time he spit out the water ball, Qingming also opened his mouth and spit out a fireball. It turned out that when Qingming swung his sword to block the kunai attack, he had already completed the seal with his left hand. Only then, at the critical moment, did he perform the ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. Sizzle! The fireball and the water ball met, making a harsh sound. Then, a large amount of water vapor appeared and quickly spread around. Qing had extremely rich combat experience, and he thought of using the environment at the first time. So, he saw him quickly seal with both hands, and in the blink of an eye, he performed the iconic ninjutsu of the Hidden Mist Village, water style, hidden mist technique. At this time, if Qingming wanted to, he still had a chance to interrupt the opponent. However, he had been coveting this ninjutsu for a long time, and now the opportunity was just right. So, he didn't interrupt, but instead used his full strength to activate the Sharingan, observing the opponent's seal sequence and the general chakra flow. When he completed the seal and performed the ninjutsu, he also learned this technique at the same time. This is the copying ability of the Sharingan. Qingming opened the panel and took a glance. Sure enough, he saw an additional skill on it, water style, mist hidden technique, level 1, 1/200. Just like the original wind style, wind blade, the ninjutsu that was successfully copied was directly at the entry level, and there was no need for trial and error in the early stage. Although with his current chakra, it would not take much effort to get started with such a ninjutsu, it would be a good thing to save a little trouble. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming closed the panel and looked around. At this time, his vision was already white, and even his perception was suppressed a little. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! A subtle sound of breaking through the air suddenly came from the side. Qingming's ears moved slightly, and the longsword in his hand swung out, accurately blocking all the kunai attacks. The surroundings became quiet again, and Qingming was not impatient, just quietly waiting for the other party to make a move. Suddenly, just as Qingming was waiting patiently, a familiar scream came. Qingming's expression moved, and he flashed and appeared in front of Uchiha who was not far away. He was already seriously injured, and there was another kunai on his arm. Seeing him coming, Uchiha wanted to say something, but the next moment, his expression suddenly became extremely terrified. Die! A creepy voice appeared behind Qingming. Then, Qing held a kunai and stabbed it directly into his back. However, Qingming seemed to have expected it. He jumped forward, avoiding the attack and turning his body 180 degrees. What? Qing was shocked and was about to withdraw. But at this moment, Qingming performed the instant sword technique. A ray of green light appeared on his body, merging him with a long sword in his hand, and came to Qing in an instant. Swoosh! A ray of knife light flashed. It was about to cut Qing's neck. At the critical moment, Qing raised the kunai in his hand and blocked Qingming's slash. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound was heard. Qing couldn't bear the force and flew out. Qingming chased after him relentlessly, swinging the long sword in his hand one after another, slashing Qing back again and again, and for a moment, he had no power to fight back. Qingming's sword was getting faster and faster, and gradually, Qing couldn't keep up. At a certain moment, his expression suddenly became dazed, and when he came to his senses again, Qingming's long sword was already in front of him. Qing didn't have time to think about it, and hurriedly raised the kunai in his hand to block. However, to his surprise, the long sword passed over his kunai like an illusion, and behind the illusion, there was another long sword. Moreover, it seemed to adjust the attack angle according to his blocking action. At this time, it was too late for him to block. Qing knew that he was hit, and he said to himself, "Not good," and his body suddenly retreated backwards. Seeing this, Qingming sneered and said, "It's too late to run now." As he spoke, he exerted force on his wrist, and the long sword in his hand became faster again. Swish! The sound of the sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood rang out. A little bit of blood splashed out on Qing's chest. Suddenly, a wound appeared on his chest. This time, the wound was not like the shallow bloodstain left by Qingming's previous failed sneak attack. The deepest part of the wound could even reveal the white bones. Feeling the severe pain in his chest, Qing tried not to scream, but just groaned, and then used up his last bit of strength to pull away. Seeing this, Qingming was about to go forward to finish off the opponent. But at this moment, a water dragon appeared from the side and rushed straight towards him. Water dragon bullet technique. Qingming's heart moved, and he gave up the opportunity to finish off the opponent. He flashed and avoided the attack of the water dragon. Swish! A blue phantom appeared and protected Qing. Who else could it be but Madarumi? The other party looked at Qingming, his eyes full of vigilance. Although she had learned some of Qingming's strength through fighting with a shadow clone, she still found it hard to believe when she saw Qingming defeat Qing so cleanly. In this regard, Qingming could only say that Qing was too impatient and underestimated him. The opponent used Uchiha Qingming to set a trap for him, but he never thought that he would take advantage of the situation and take the initiative. If his instant sword technique level was not too low and his movement speed was not fast enough, the initial counterattack would have killed the opponent. Even so, in the subsequent fight, he still relied on the phantom sword technique to seriously injure the opponent. Unfortunately, Terumi came too fast. Chapter 320, A Trial. Hula! A gust of sea breeze blew, raising waves more than half a meter high. The white mist in the field, without the support of Qing's chakra, was blown away quickly. Qingming just stared at Terumi without saying a word. Similarly, the other party also looked at him vigilantly, trying to find his flaws. As time passed, the atmosphere between the two became more and more oppressive. The air around them seemed to solidify, and the seriously injured Qing and Uchiha Qingming were almost unable to breathe. Another gust of sea breeze blew. The hair on Terumi's forehead was blown, blocking her vision. Now, Qingming thought, and the chakra gathered at the bottom of his feet suddenly burst out, making his speed suddenly increase to an extremely exaggerated level. Under his feet, a large area of seawater suddenly sank. Then, his body turned into a residual image and came in front of Terumi in an instant. Whoosh! A flash of knife light passed by. Qingming swung the long sword in his hand, and the wind chakra was injected into it. A layer of green light suddenly attached to the blade of the long sword. Suddenly, an extremely sharp breath came from it and attacked Terumi's snow-white neck. So fast, Terumi was shocked when she saw Qingming suddenly appearing in front of her. When she felt the sharp breath on Qingming's blade, her face changed drastically. Instinctively, she wanted to dodge. However, when she glanced at Qing, who was seriously injured behind her, she gave up the idea. At this time, she could dodge, but Qing behind her would definitely suffer. This was something she never wanted to see. So, she gritted her teeth and immediately raised the kunai in her hand to block in front of her. Seeing this, Qingming smiled slightly and secretly increased the strength in his hand again. Ding! The long sword and kunai collided, making a crisp metal collision sound. Although Qingming is not yet an adult and is small in size, the terrifying increase brought by 16 points of physique has made him burst out with power far beyond that of an adult ninja. In addition, The existence of the long sword also made it easier for him to exert his power than the opponent's kunai. However, even so, after the two collided, Terumi Mei did not retreat a single step. Qingming's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked carefully, and saw that her arm holding the kunai was slightly thicker, and the muscle lines inside were obvious, obviously using some kind of secret technique to increase her power. Not only that, the sea surface under her feet also sank a large area. Obviously, a large part of her strength was unloaded into the sea. Apart from anything else, just this one move made Qingming understand that the opponent's physical skills were definitely not weak. Before, when he was fighting with the shadow clone, he tried his best to avoid close combat, and looked like he was not good at physical skills. And now, Qingming shook his head secretly. There is no doubt that the opponent has been hiding his strength from beginning to end. Or in other words, intelligence. Qingming is almost certain that the opponent's physical skills are definitely not inferior to those of ordinary Jonin who are good at this. Think about it, as a being who can grow into a shadow in the future, how could he have such a big shortcoming? Everything the other party did was just a disguise. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. And Qingming suddenly exerted force to force Terumi Mei back. Indeed, the opponent's physical skills are indeed not weaker than those of ordinary Jonin. But Qingming's physical skills, or swordsmanship, are not comparable to those of ordinary Jonin. With a thought, Qingming swung out his longsword again and chopped at Terumi Mei. Terumi Mei did not dare to be careless at all and quickly blocked it. Ding ding dang dang, kunai and long swords collided, and the sound of metal clashing rang out one after another. Qingming and Terumi Mei countered each other's moves and fought fiercely. Unconsciously, the intensity of the battle between the outermost ninja and the Konoha ninja decreased, and each of them devoted a little attention to the battle situation here. Obviously, they knew very well that in this battle with a small difference in number and strength, which side would win in the end would still depend on the two leaders. If Terumi Mei defeated Qingming, the Konoha ninja in the game would naturally retreat. On the contrary, if Qingming wins, the mist ninja will retreat. Ding ding dang dang. Soon, 5 minutes passed. The battle is still going on. Just when everyone thought that this battle would last longer. Swish! Suddenly, the sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood rang out, and bits of blood splashed. Terumi Mei groaned and suddenly pulled away. It can be seen that there is a deep scar on her right arm. Her peripheral vision swept across the blood stain on her forearm, and she endured the burning pain from it. Terumi Mei stared at Qingming's long sword and thought to herself, what happened just now? Just now, when the two were fighting fiercely, Qingming suddenly changed his moves. The sword was no longer as grand and righteous as at the beginning, but became sinister and secretive. This sudden change in style made her very uncomfortable, and then she was hit. She clearly saw the knife coming and instinctively blocked it, but suddenly she found that Qingming's attack had just been launched. This forced her to pause and reconsider her response. And it was this moment of stagnation that caused a flaw in her defense. Only because she reacted quickly and made timely adjustments afterwards did she not suffer more serious injuries. Otherwise, she might have fallen to the ground seriously injured like Qingming. But even so, it made her feel very difficult. If every attack from Qingming was like this, then even if she reacted quickly, she would reveal a bigger flaw sooner or later. Moreover, is this swordsmanship or illusion? If you don't figure this out, you can't carry out targeted defense, and the subsequent troubles will be even greater. Just as Terumi Mei was thinking, Qing, who had retreated to the edge of the battlefield, suddenly shouted, "Pay attention to the knife light. He is using the knife light to cast an illusion on you and affect your senses." As the saying goes, those who are involved are confused, while those who are on the sidelines can see clearly. Terumi was in the middle of the situation, and for a moment, she could not see through Qingming's illusion sword art, but Qing was outside the situation, but he used his Byakugan to observe chakra very carefully and found clues. In addition, he was seriously injured by Qingming's move not long ago. Therefore, he immediately understood the situation of Terumi and hurriedly reminded her. And what he said was indeed right. More than a week had passed. Thanks to the foundation laid by the LV700 sword art, Qingming's illusion sword art had been upgraded from LV4-701, 2000, to LV5-1150, 5000. Generally, for C-level skills, LV5 is already perfect. Although illusion sword art is not a C-level skill, LV5 is also an important watershed. After being promoted to this level, he can already do many things. For example, He can use the light of the sword to perform illusions. That's right, now his illusion sword art can be performed by using the light on the blade during the fight, and the concealment is much stronger than before. That's why Qing and Terumi Mei were attacked one after another. It's not that they were not vigilant enough or their strength was not good enough, but his method was too clever. Similarly, such a phantom sword technique is not easy to avoid even if the opponent knows the principle. After all, when fighting, you can't ignore the opponent's attack method and angle, right? In this way, Qingming has plenty of opportunities to perform the phantom sword technique, and just now he was just a small test. Next, it depends on whether the opponent can hold on. Chapter 321 Fierce Fight. Instant sword technique. With a thought, the wind escape chakra condensed, an array of green light emerged, covering the whole body. The next moment, Qingming's speed increased dramatically, and the whole person turned into a shadow, rushing straight towards Terumi Mei. This move again, on the periphery of the battlefield, Qing's heart jumped, fearing that Terumi Mei would not be able to react in time, and Qingming would seize the opportunity. Fortunately, Terumi Mei reacted quickly and made a defensive move in an instant. Swoosh! A flash of knife light passed by. Terumi Mei felt that Qingming's knife-swinging movement suddenly became sluggish. After a moment, the whole person seemed to be divided into two time periods, each swinging a knife. Suddenly, Terumi Mei felt her scalp tingling. Normally, Qingming can only attack once at a time. But now, there are two Qingmings attacking at the same time, which means there is only one possibility: her senses are affected. As for whether it is a shadow clone, Terumi Mei still has this judgment. Without any hesitation, this time Terumi Mei did not take it head-on, but dodged and retreated to the back. The knife missed. Qingming frowned slightly, and then gathered chakra at the bottom of his feet. With a bang, the sea surface exploded, and a large amount of seawater spread out in all directions, and Qingming's speed increased again. Damn little devil! Seeing Qingming was relentless and rushed towards her again, Terumi Mei cursed inwardly and quickly raised the kunai in her hand to block. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound rang out, and the longsword and kunai were retracted as soon as they touched. Qingming turned his wrist and changed the long sword from vertical chopping to horizontal slashing. Terumi Mei reacted quickly, leaned back, and avoided Qingming's attack by a hair's breadth. Seeing this, Qingming's eyes lit up, and he immediately raised his left hand, completed the seal in an instant, and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, Great Fireball Jutsu. A fist-sized fireball was spit out from his mouth, and then it suddenly grew larger and finally hit Terumi Mei. Bang! The fireball hit Terumi Mei and exploded. A scream rang out. However, Qingming ignored it and immediately turned his head to look at the sea in front of him. Boom! The sea surface suddenly exploded, and a water dragon broke through the waves and rushed straight into the air. Then, it lowered its head, as if it had found a target, and rushed straight towards him. If he was hit, with the size and impact force of the water dragon, he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. Without any hesitation, Qingming used a flash body technique and retreated directly to the back. Boom! The water dragon bombarded the sea surface, like a meteorite falling from the sky, smashing a big hole. Then, several meters high waves appeared, carrying a huge impact force, and quickly spread to the surroundings. Qingming didn't want to be affected, so he had to retreat again. After a few breaths, everything returned to calm. Qingming looked forward and saw Terumi Mei drilled out of the sea and stood on the sea again. Obviously, his fire style, Great Fireball technique just now failed to hurt the other party. The scream from the other party just confused him. Wait! Suddenly, Qingming's eyes lit up and he noticed that Terumi Mei's clothes were torn and her skin was slightly charred. Obviously, his attack just now did not hurt the other party completely. It was just that she dodged too quickly, so she was not seriously injured. In fact, it was true. Just now, when the fireball was approaching, Terumi Mei performed the water style, water substitute technique. Although she dodged the subsequent attack, she was also slightly injured. However, she was also decisive. She actually performed the substitute technique in that situation and took the opportunity to escape into the water, gaining a chance to counterattack. Just now, her water style, water dragon bullet technique did not hurt him, but it successfully forced him back. At this time, the two of them pulled away, and Terumi Mei could also play to her strengths. Yes, her taijutsu is not bad, but compared to ninjutsu, it seems to be relatively ordinary. With 2 blood limit, she is best at ninjutsu. Just like now, Before Qingming came close, she formed seals with both hands and performed the ninjutsu, boiling style, skillful mist technique. The so-called boiling style is actually the fusion of water attribute and earth attribute chakra, which allows ninjas to master the boiling technique of chakra. However, the same boiling style, in the hands of different people, the state of performance is also different. For example, the five-tailed Jinchuriki Han of the Hidden Rock Village mainly uses the steam after the boiling chakra to enhance his own strength and speed. And the Darumi Mei in front of him is even more terrifying. She can adjust the acidity in the high-temperature steam at will, and then evaporate and corrode other things. For example, the bones of Susanoo. Therefore, after seeing the large amount of high-temperature white mist coming towards him, Qingming did not hesitate and immediately retreated. Not only that, he also formed seals with both hands and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, great breakthrough. In an instant, a strong wind blew, and a large amount of seawater was engulfed by the wind style released by Qingming and rushed towards the acid mist in front. As soon as they came into contact, the two sides merged into one. The seawater began to reduce the acidity in the white mist, and the strong wind ensured that they would not float over. However, this was bad luck for the fish in the sea. Originally, they had already hidden in the depths of the sea, but Qingming did this and almost all of them died in the acid mist. After a few breaths, the attack stopped, and Qingming was still standing in the distance intact. Seeing that the attack did not work, Darumi Mei did not get discouraged. She aimed at Qingming's position, and before he could make any moves, she formed a seal again and performed the ninjutsu, water style, water formation pillar. She opened her mouth, and a large amount of water style chakra was condensed, and then formed a water ball, which hit Qingming in front of her. Feeling the huge amount of chakra in it, Qingming wisely chose to temporarily avoid the edge. Boom! The water ball hit the sea surface and instantly turned into a huge amount of seawater, which quickly spread to the surroundings. This technique has the level of extinguishing Uchiha Madara's fire style, great fire extinction on land, let alone the ocean home court. Almost instantly, a huge wave of more than 10 meters in height was formed, hitting Qingming directly. Seeing this, Qingming retreated repeatedly, but the huge wave was advancing too fast. And it almost came to him in the blink of an eye. Seeing that he was about to be swept into it, at the critical moment, Qingming jumped up, and used several forces in succession to come to the top of the waves. At a height of more than 10 meters, Qingming looked down. The next moment, his pupils shrank suddenly, and he saw Darumi facing him, opening her mouth and spitting out a large piece of sticky liquid. Is this dissolving escape? In an instant, Qingming recognized this technique. The so-called dissolving escape is Darumi's second bloodline limit, which is a fusion of earth attribute and water attribute chakra. Not only is it extremely sticky, it is difficult to remove once it sticks to it, and it is also extremely corrosive. It can be said that it is extremely difficult to deal with. And Darumi also grasped the timing of performing this technique very well, just before he showed his head. At this moment, Qingming felt extremely dangerous. Chapter 322 Dilemma. Without any hesitation, he pushed the 3 Magatama Sharingan to its limit. In an instant, everything in front of him slowed down. Qingming raised his hands, quickly completed the seal, and performed the ninjutsu, water style, water array wall. A thick water wall suddenly rose from the waves and protected Qingming. Almost in the next moment, the dissolving mucus sprayed by Darumi sprayed on it. A sound of sizzle suddenly sounded. Almost in the blink of an eye, the water wall was corroded and assimilated. However, this also bought precious time for Qingming. Without any hesitation, the moment he performed water style, water array wall, he pulled back. However, how could Darumi, who had finally caught the opportunity, let him leave easily? As soon as he retreated, the other party caught up with him, and completed the seal on the way, performing a water-style ninjutsu that Qingming had never seen before. A large amount of water chakra was condensed by her, and injected into the sea through her palm, turning it into countless water arrows, shooting straight towards Qingming. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Hearing this harsh sound of breaking through the air, Qingming's expression remained unchanged. The Sharingan was pushed to the limit, and the longsword in his hand danced like a windmill. With a burst of ding-ding-dang-dang sounds, all the water arrows shot at him were blocked. Humph! Seeing this scene, Darumi snorted coldly, without any pause, raised her hand again to form a seal, and performed another water ninjutsu. Its performance is similar to the advanced ninjutsu developed by Senju Tobirama, water-style water-cutting wave, which also sprays a very penetrating stream of water from the mouth to attack the target. However, unlike the water-style water-cutting wave, it does not have a continuity. It is precisely because of this that Qingming easily avoided it with the powerful insight brought by the 3 Magatama Sharingan. However, before he could fight back, Madarumi formed a seal again and used the water-style, water dragon bullet technique. Obviously, the opponent was planning to copy the fight against the shadow clone, using large-scale and continuous attacks to force him to dodge continuously, thus revealing his flaws and finally giving him a fatal blow. However, how could he, who had the memory of the shadow clone, do as the opponent wished? What's more, the shadow clone didn't dare to fight the opponent head-on. First, the chakra in the shadow clone's body was indeed insufficient and could not outlast the opponent. Second, even though his shadow clone technique had been promoted to level 4 and its stability was greatly increased, it still couldn't withstand much damage. Therefore, he was dragged to death by the opponent. He was different. Although his chakra was a little insufficient after a long journey, there were so many mist ninjas around him with the chakra absorption technique. He was not afraid of fighting with the opponent. Moreover, as the main body, he was not afraid of being injured. Even the level 8 palm fairy technique could allow him to ignore ordinary damage to a certain extent. With all these things, it was simply a pipe dream for the other party to defeat him by defeating the shadow clone, even if she used the dissolving escape and boiling escape. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. And Qingming looked at the water dragon rushing towards him and stopped dodging. With a clang, the long sword returned to the sheath. He raised his hands, completed the seal in an instant, opened his mouth, and performed the ninjutsu, fire escape, dragon fire jutsu. A line of fire spewed out of his mouth, and then turned into a fire dragon, carrying a rolling heat wave, rushing into the air and colliding with the oncoming water dragon. Boom! A dull collision sound came. The fire dragon and the water dragon collided with each other, exploded, and turned into countless flames and water streams falling from the sky, scattering and shooting down. Equally matched. Everyone in the field, whether it was the Mist Ninja or the Konoha Ninja, saw this scene, and this thought involuntarily emerged in their hearts. Then, they were all shocked. Because theoretically, water attribute chakra has a restraining effect on fire attribute chakra. In this way, the ninjutsu formed by the condensation of 2 attribute chakras should also have a restraining effect. At this time, unless the party performing the fire escape has a more advanced ninjutsu or condenses more chakra, they will be at a disadvantage. Just like water can extinguish fire and fire can evaporate water, the accumulation of quantitative changes can sometimes achieve qualitative changes. But the problem is that the fire escape, dragon fire technique performed by Qingming is not more advanced than the water escape, water dragon bullet technique performed by Darumi Mei, and is even lower, and the chakras used by both parties are almost the same. Logically speaking, the fire dragon released by Qingming will definitely be at a disadvantage. But the fact is that the 2 sides fought evenly. This is obviously not normal. That's why everyone was shocked. However, this is also easy to understand. There is only one reason for this situation, that is, he has a deep understanding of the fire escape, dragon fire technique. Maybe Madarumi is a genius who can quickly master a ninjutsu, but as long as she doesn't reach the level of a demon, plus a little luck, she won't be able to practice this ninjutsu to perfection. Qingming is different. With the existence of a proficiency panel, he may not be able to learn a ninjutsu in a few or even dozens of times, but as long as he is willing to spend time and energy, he can definitely practice it to perfection. Whether a ninjutsu is perfect or not, the effect it can play is far from being as simple as the promotion of 1 level shown on the skill panel. It is the difference in the upper limit. Not to mention anything else, just a casting speed, the ninjutsu that he has practiced to perfection, SYN level and below can basically be cast instantly. This allows him to strike back. In addition, an ninjutsu that he has practiced to perfection also means that he has mastered all its skills. And the suppression of skills will allow him to do something like a 4-2-pound move. It is precisely because of these things that he was at a disadvantage in the previous fight, but he did not lose the upper hand. These are long to talk about, but in fact, they are only in Qingming's thoughts. What he could think of, Madarumi could also think of. Therefore, compared to the shock of the people around her, she understood the gap more clearly. At the same time, her face became even uglier. Originally, she thought Qingming's swordsmanship was already powerful enough. After all, with the title of Ghost Sword, she was somewhat mentally prepared. But the question is, what is the situation with this extremely skilled ninjutsu? It was fine before. Although Qingming performed ninjutsu several times, she was only surprised when he formed a seal with one hand. But now, Qingming made a full strength attack, and the other party saw through his strength at once. Do you want to retreat? Suddenly, this thought came to Maida Rumi's mind. However, they had been preparing for a long time to raid Konoha's forward base in the Land of Waves this time. If they leave now, if Qingming and others copy the retreat of the large army and perform well, then their sin will be great. For a time, Maida Rumi was in a dilemma. Chapter 323 Retreat. With the convenience of the Sharingan, Qingming saw the entanglement into Rumi Mei's eyes at a glance, but he didn't care about it. At this time, he had returned to the sea surface and was at the same height as the other party. Without any hesitation, he rushed forward quickly, and while running, he formed seals with both hands, and instantly performed the ninjutsu, fire style, phoenix fire technique. The next moment, fireballs like impatience seeds flew out of his mouth, like meteors, hitting Rumi Mei. Not only that, in order to enhance the lethality of this technique, he also took the opportunity to throw several shurikens, making them sandwiched in the fireballs and attacking Rumi Mei. The fireballs were flying, the shurikens were hidden, and it seemed that they were about to hit Rumi Mei, but they were blocked by a wall of water that suddenly rose. It turned out that at the moment he took action, Rumi Mei reacted and quickly retreated. At the same time, she quickly formed seals with both hands, and finally performed the ninjutsu, water style, water array wall before the fireballs. This not only blocked the ninjutsu as a magic attack, but also blocked the shuriken sandwiched in it as a physical attack. Qingming didn't care too much about this, because he used this technique to contain the opponent and get a chance to get close. And now, his goal has been achieved. Clang! The long sword was unsheathed. Qingming came in front of Rumi Mei and swung the sword again. The blade flashed with cold light, reflecting Rumi Mei's eyes slightly wandering. Not good. Suddenly, Rumi Mei reacted and quickly gathered her mind, no longer paying attention to Qingming's long sword, and only dodged and blocked by feeling. For a while, the two of them were entangled again. Seeing that the situation was about to fall into a passive situation again, Rumi Mei gritted her teeth and suddenly distanced herself from Qingming at the cost of injuring her left arm. The next moment, she completed the seal at the fastest speed in her life and performed the blood inheritance ninjutsu, dissolution release, dissolution of monsters. Puff! A large amount of pungent and sticky liquid sprayed towards Qingming's face. Qingming didn't dare to resist, and quickly dodged to the side, avoiding the fate of being corroded and melted. Instant sword technique. Almost the next moment after he dodged the attack, he mobilized the wind escape chakra, performed this sword technique, and quickly approached Rumi Mei. However, Rumi Mei was not a pushover. She flipped her hands and took out several kunai from nowhere, like a fairy scattering flowers, shooting at his vital points. Seeing this scene, Qingming's Sharingan rotated rapidly, and in an instant he determined the flight direction and trajectory of all the kunai. Then, the green light flashed on his body, and he performed the instant sword technique in succession to avoid these attacks. However, he avoided the opponent's attack, but this also gave Rumi Mei time to increase the distance between the two again. Then, without saying a word, she used the dissolution escape, dissolving monster technique on Qingming. Qingming still didn't dare to resist, and could only dodge. So, the battle became flying a kite and being released a kite. Time passed by minute by minute. Gradually, Maida Rumi could not bear it anymore. Compared with Qingming, who mostly used swordsmanship to fight the enemy, occasionally supplemented by ninjutsu and illusion, Maida Rumi basically used ninjutsu to fight in order to play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. In this way, the chakra consumption of both sides is not at the same level at all. In addition, the pressures on both sides are different, and the result can be imagined. Huchi Maida Rumi stood on the sea with injuries all over her body, breathing heavily, looking at Qingming in the distance, her eyes full of unwillingness. It can be seen that Qingming at this time, compared with the beginning, has not changed much except that his clothes are a little damaged, and there is no injury on his body. This is not to say that he is not injured, but the injuries have been healed by the improved palm fairy technique he performed in the battle. With the increase and decrease of one, the image of the two formed a sharp contrast. At the same time, this also reflects the difference in their status. And this is also the reason why Maida Rumi is unwilling. However, No matter how unwilling she was, she had no choice but to do so. If she was still a little entangled before, she didn't have to be embarrassed now, because she had no choice but to retreat. Made Arumi glance at the periphery of the battlefield. More than 10 minutes had passed, and the advantage she had taken advantage of Qingming's absence was gone. If this continued, not only would she die here, but others would also be unable to escape the fate of death. With this thought in mind, Maid Arumi immediately made up her mind, and with a few flashes, she retreated to the periphery of the battlefield, near Qing, and made a retreat gesture to him. At this time, although Qing's condition was still very poor, the wound on his chest had been treated urgently, and the bleeding had stopped temporarily, and his combat power had recovered a little. He saw Maid Arumi's gesture, and without any hesitation, he immediately took out a whistle and blew it. In an instant, a shrill whistle sounded in the field. Originally, all the mist ninjas were paying attention to this side, and now they heard the order to retreat, and naturally reacted at the first time. Seeing their retreat, Uchiha Qingming immediately came to Qingming and asked, "Captain, do you want to chase them?" Hearing this, Qingming looked in the direction where Tarumi Mei and others were running, which was the direction where the Kirigakure warships left, and also the direction of their Konoha forward base in the Land of Waves. Obviously, Tarumi Mei and others were planning to join up with the Kirigakure army. Yes, in the vast ocean, except for joining up with the main army, they had nowhere else to go, and only the 4 warships could allow them to return safely. And it just so happened that their mission was to launch a surprise attack from the rear of Kirigakure. This plan is basically unlikely to work, but they still have to go to the main battlefield. In this way, they can completely chase them along the way. However, before that, Qingming looked around the battlefield. At this time, there were only 21 surviving Konoha ninjas, and all of them were injured. In this case, it is naturally impossible to pursue them directly. In this state, even if they catch up, they may not be able to stop the other party. If they encounter the enemy's support troops again, the trouble will be even greater. So, after some thinking, Qingming decided to rest for a while before leading the team to pursue. When he made this decision, both Uchiha Qingming breathed a sigh of relief. Obviously, they didn't want to catch up like this. Seeing the micro-expressions of the two, Qingming ordered, "You should immediately count the losses of each team, and check the injuries of everyone. If they are too serious, you can send them to me first." "Yes, Captain," Uchiha Qingming responded and left. Looking at their backs, Qingming didn't think about it anymore. After a few instants, he came to the reef sentry tower. Afterwards, regardless of the blood and corpses on the ground, he found a relatively clean place and began to close his eyes to rest. The continuous journey and fighting have exhausted him, and he must rest as soon as possible. And this is one of the reasons why he didn't rashly lead people to pursue. Chapter 324 Main Battlefield. Half an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes. He could see that there were about 20 people squatting or standing around him. Some of them were like him, with their eyes closed, accumulating strength for the next battle. Some were chewing ration pills to replenish the excessive chakra consumed in their bodies. Some were wiping the ninja tools in their hands, trying to have a better chance of winning in the next battle. In short, everyone was silent. Until he opened his eyes and stood up. Suddenly, everyone looked over. Qingming's eyes swept over their faces one by one, and finally fell on the 3 unconscious people. The 3 people were wrapped in bandages, and even though they had just been cured by Qingming's LV8 palm immortal technique not long ago, they still looked half dead. There was no doubt that the 3 were seriously injured. They were lucky to catch up with Tarumi Mei and others who were in a hurry to retreat, so they saved their lives. Otherwise, they might have died from a random attack by a mist ninja. But in this state, they would definitely not be able to participate in the next battle. And Qingming couldn't leave anyone here to protect them. So, it all depends on their luck. If they encounter the support troops of the mist ninja or any other danger after they leave, they can only wait for death. As for taking them with them, please, they are going to fight, not to eat and sleep. It is more dangerous to take them with you. I wish them good luck. Qingming lowered his head and murmured, and then ignored the 3 people. He turned to look at the others and said seriously, "Are you already ready?" Everyone replied in unison. Very good. Hearing this, Qingming nodded and ordered, "Let's go." "Yes, Captain," a dozen people replied again. Qingming said no more, and rushed out of the sentry tower in a flash, then stepped in the seawater, and took the lead in the direction of the forward base. running quickly. Behind him, a group of Konoha ninjas looked at his back and followed suit. They jumped out of the sentry tower, stepped on the water, and followed him closely. Soon, only 3 seriously injured and unconscious Konoha ninjas were left in the sentry tower, while there were more than a dozen figures running on the sea outside, on the other side. The land of waves. The forward base. The ninjas belonging to Konoha and the ninjas of the hidden mist village were fighting. The scene was quite chaotic. There were more than 400 ninjas on both sides. The damage caused can be imagined. Not to mention a mere forward base, even the area within a radius of 2 or 3 kilometers has basically become a battlefield, with fighting and screams everywhere. At first, Konoha was able to take advantage of the terrain and advance preparations to gain some advantages. But as time went on, the advantages gradually disappeared and became a balance. Now, it has basically fallen into a disadvantage. The reason for this is very simple, that is, after a long period of silence, the hidden mist village launched a surprise attack that was determined to win, and all the elite were dispatched. Therefore, this is how they turned the disadvantage around despite being slightly inferior in numbers and fighting away from home. We can only say that we are thankful that the number 3 sentry tower discovered the enemy's movements in advance, allowing the forward base to be prepared. If the enemy really sneaked up nearby and caught them off guard, the situation would be even worse. In serious cases, it is possible that the forward base will collapse instantly. However, despite this, the forward base cannot hold out for too long. It just hasn't reached the critical point yet. Once the critical point is exceeded, the damage to Konoha will rise sharply. By then, everything will be too late, deep in the base. The Uchiha ninja in charge of the command frowned as he watched the battle reports coming in from the front line. After a moment, he looked at a Chunin who was in charge of delivering messages and said, "Where is the assault force at the number 3 sentry tower, Captain?" The Kanda Jonin at the number 3 sent a message not long ago, saying that they have already set out. At this point, the Chunin paused and said hesitantly, "But, Seeing that he was hesitant, the Uchiha Jonin raised his eyebrows and said directly, "Just say it if you have anything to say." "Yes, Captain." The Konoha Chunin was immediately shocked when he heard this. Then, he said directly, "Captain, the number 3 sentry tower was attacked not long ago, and now there are less than 20 people left in the team, and everyone in the team is injured. In this case, even if we support them in time and complete the mission perfectly, I am afraid it may not be of much use." He had already said this in a tactful way. In fact, what he thought in his heart was that it was useless. However, upon hearing his words, the Uchiha Jonin laughed and said, "If it were anyone else, it would definitely not be of much use, but Uchiha Qingming is different." Ghost Sword Qingming. The Konoha Chunin hesitated. "Yes, it's him," the Uchiha Jonin replied affirmatively. Others may not understand Qingming's strength and think that the Uchiha clan's propaganda about his achievements is exaggerated. But the Uchiha Jonin understands that the facts are much more exaggerated than they advertise. For example, in the ambush battle led by the 3 ninja swordsmen, Qingming basically did not suffer too serious injuries after the battle. Even afterwards, he still had the energy to treat others. All of this shows that Qingming has not yet tried his best. And according to his past performance, if he tried his best, his combat power might be able to be improved to a higher level. So, even though there are only less than 20 people left in the number 3 sentry tower, this Uchiha Jonin still has extremely high expectations for them. Or in other words, he has extremely high expectations for Qingming. As for the others, to be honest, Uchiha Jonin didn't care much. He just hoped that Qingming would arrive as soon as possible. Now, on the entire battlefield, they lacked a person who could calm the situation. Once Qingming arrived, he would immediately become the focus, boost his morale, and interrupt the opponent's offensive rhythm. Uchiha Jonin firmly believed that the genius of their Uchiha clan could do this. At this time, Qingming didn't know that he had been placed with high hopes. Now, he was on his way. And those who arrived before him were Madarumi and others. After reporting the situation to the leader Mist Ninja, she immediately received a new order to let her take a part of the troops to continue to block Qingming, who might arrive. However, Qingming had long known that the other party had fled to the main battlefield, and his intelligence would inevitably be leaked. In this way, how could he not guard against this? Therefore, after he approached the forward base for 5 kilometers, he led the team to another direction, which was the route he had sneaked from the forward base to the reef sentry tower before. In this way, he just avoided the blockade of Madarumi. Chapter 325 Rescue. 20 minutes later, Qingming led the team to the forward base. Immediately, the sound of metal clashing between ninja tools, the screams and wails of injured ninjas, the deafening explosion of detonating tags, and other miscellaneous sounds were heard. This made Qingming and his dozen of men very alert. Qingming opened his Sharingan, quickly glanced at the battlefield, and then directly ordered, "Follow me, be careful not to get too far away from me." "Yes, Captain," everyone nodded immediately after hearing this. Seeing this, Qingming raised 3 fingers. Then, he closed them one by one. When all the fingers were put away, he suddenly rushed out of his hiding place and rushed to the battlefield from the side. Seeing this, more than a dozen people behind him immediately followed. The nearby mist ninja was caught off guard, and several people were killed in the blink of an eye, and the formation was immediately in chaos. On the contrary, the Konoha ninjas who were entangled with them were liberated. Seeing that Qingming was still charging forward, they quickly followed the surviving ninjas in the number 3 sentry tower and followed behind Qingming and on his left and right wings. Thus, a sharp arrow with Qingming as the arrowhead was formed and rushed straight into the battlefield. With the LV7-0/0 swordsmanship, coupled with the LV5 illusion swordsmanship, and the 3 Magatama Sharingan that had evolved to the limit, Qingming was like a god of war, wreaking havoc on the entire battlefield, unstoppable. All the mist ninjas along the way, whether they were Chunin or Jinan, were no match for him. As for Jinan, even if the hidden mist village sent out the elite this time, Jinan were not everywhere. The place where Qingming launched the raid was carefully selected, and the places with a relatively dense concentration of Jinan were eliminated early on. Moreover, these hidden mist Jinan were not without opponents. With the restraint of those Konoha Jinan, he had more time to play freely. A series of screams rang out. Qingming slashed at the mist ninjas one by one, quickly harvesting their lives, and at the same time, he did not forget to make hand seals and perform the chakra absorption technique to replenish the chakra in his body. Although he rested at the number 3 sentry tower for half an hour and rushed here for 20 minutes, he was also practicing the chakra refining technique at all times to accumulate chakra. However, due to the long-distance raid and continuous battles, his chakra consumption was really a bit large, so his condition has not yet recovered to its heyday. It just so happened that now there was a chance, he would naturally not miss it. With his right hand wrapped in a layer of chakra, he grabbed the neck of a mist hidden ninja, and drained his chakra in a few seconds before the other party died. Qingming threw the corpse in his hand to a mist hidden ninja special Jinan who was attacking in front of him. That's right, after he killed nearly 10 people in a row, a mist hidden ninja special Jinan finally freed his hands to block his advance. Unfortunately, a mere special Jinan was really not very useful. When he saw the corpse of his companion falling on him, he instinctively dodged to the side. When he turned his attention back to Qingming, he saw a flash of green light on the longsword in Qingming's hand and on his body. Then, Qingming appeared in front of him. Huh? The Kurigakure special Jinan was startled and quickly dodged and retreated. While pulling away, he threw the kunai in his hand. Whoosh! A subtle sound of breaking through the air was heard. The kunai accurately shot towards Qingming's heart. Qingming's Sharingan turned slightly and locked the flight trajectory of the kunai. Then, the green light on his body flashed again, and the instant sword technique was performed. While avoiding the attack, he once again approached the Kurigakure special Jinan. However, this time, he did not appear in front of him, but appeared on his side. At this time, he just turned his head and prepared to move towards this side. Obviously, Qingming had predicted his movements in advance through the powerful insight of the Sharingan. In this way, he happened to face the illusion that Qingming had prepared for a long time, the magical shackle technique. In an instant, a sharp pain came from everywhere. This Kurigakure special Jinan felt as if his body was nailed by several giant iron nails and could not move. Uchiha Qingming, this Kurigakure special Jinan seemed to know that he could not escape death, so at the last moment of his life, he shouted Qingming's name loudly. This seemed to remind others, but also seemed a little unwilling. However, Qingming didn't care what he thought. Puff! The long knife in his hand stabbed out and pierced the lower abdomen of this Kurigakure special Jinan. Although the injury was serious, it would not kill him on the spot. Taking this opportunity, Qingming formed seals with both hands and performed the ninjutsu, chakra absorption technique. A faint chakra emerged from his palm, and Qingming grabbed the neck of this Kurigakure special Jinan. Suddenly, the chakra in the other party's body was like a flood, flowing into Qingming's body along the meridians of his palm, and transformed into his own chakra. Qingming took the time to open the panel and glanced at it. At present, his chakra absorption technique has already gone through 70% of the LV5 road. With about 1,000 more points of proficiency, it can be promoted to LV6. By then, the speed of absorbing chakra will inevitably increase further. Perhaps, by then, this technique can also serve as an offensive skill. Just think about it, draining the chakra from the opponent's body in the instant of touching the opponent. This kind of thing is terrifying to think about. However, Qingming estimated that even if he could do this at that time, he would probably only be able to deal with some mid-level and low-level ninjas. Because no Jonin would let him touch for a few seconds during a battle. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming loosened his palm. The special Jonin under his palm had been drained of chakra and could not hold on to his life. He completely lost his life. Squeak! Qingming drew out his long sword and glanced around. Faintly, he could see some Jonin of Kirigakure casting their eyes over, and some people were even trying to get rid of the entanglement of Konoha Jonin and rushing towards him. Qingming knew that he didn't have much time left. With this thought, he immediately charged into the battle group in front, waving the longsword in his hand, and continued the killing action just now. More Konoha ninjas were liberated, and formed a new force with the ninjas behind him and on both wings, and charged into other battlefields. 2 minutes later, Qingming stopped charging. He looked at the familiar-looking mist-hidden ninja in front of him, and a hint of vigilance finally flashed in his eyes. Uchiha kid, I heard that you killed that waste Marinosuke. Now let me see what you can do. The mist-hidden ninja showed a mouthful of white teeth, grinned and said, remember, my name is Katero, Kaguya Katero, ha. After that, he shouted, and his bones grew rapidly, instantly turning into countless bone spurs that wrapped his whole body. That's right, the person who came was none other than the Kaguya clan's ninja. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.